Chapter 309. Once she said that, the surroundings fell silent. Even Sun Zhongyan and the rest couldn't help but look at Xiao. Actually, this was what they were most curious about. Back then, even Wei Yun was stopped outside, but Xiao successfully barged in and went all the way to the 6th floor. One had to know that even Sun Zhongyan and the rest had only reached the 5th floor at most. The Empress stared closely at Xiao, and many guesses flashed across her mind. Ever since Xiao came back, he had been living in seclusion. Other than recuperating, he rarely interfered with other matters. He seemed to have no desires and was gentle and calm. However, she felt that something was amiss. She couldn't pinpoint exactly what the problem was, but she had a feeling that Xiao wasn't as simple and harmless as he looked on the surface. If he was really a sickly and weak person, how did he enter Zhou Tower and go up to the 6th floor? Countless gazes landed on Xiao and they were scrutinizing him. Xiao looked calm as he smiled. However, that smile didn't extend to the corners of his eyes. The reason why I can go up to the 6th floor is that my mother went up before. Emperor Zhou was stunned. What did you say? Xiao took out something from his arms. It was a palm-sized ring-shaped jade pendant. It was entirely green in color and looked like a leaf that sprouted at the beginning of spring. It was clear and clean. There was a pattern engraved on the jade pendant. Chu Luiwei glanced at it from the corner of his eyes and realized that it seemed to be a peach blossom pattern. This was clearly a jade pendant carved from high-quality jade, but other than that there didn't seem to be anything special about it. However, Emperor Zhou's expression changed when he saw the jade pendant. He hurriedly walked forward as if he wanted to take a closer look at the jade pendant, but his hand suddenly stopped halfway. Chu Luiwei had never seen such an expression on Emperor Zhou's face. Complicated, tangled, longing, regret. She glanced at the Empress, who was standing behind Emperor Zhou, and her face turned ghastly pale as if she had seen something terrifying. With a thought, she roughly guessed the origin of the jade pendant. Where did you get this jade pendant? Asked Emperor Zhou with a trembling voice. The 6th floor. Xiao said calmly. When I saw that Zhou Tower was on fire, I remembered that the item was still on the 6th level. I was worried, so I went up despite being stopped. Although I was injured, fortunately I got it back in one piece. This was the first gift she personally gave me back then. After she left the palace, she took it with her. I have been looking for this thing for many years, but I didn't expect. Emperor Zhou's heart seemed to be blocked by something, and he didn't say anything for a long time. Chu Luiwei understood. It turns out that it's Emperor Zhou and Consort Wan's love token. No wonder Emperor Zhou had such a strong reaction. Looking at him, he does have deep feelings for Consort Wan. Rumor has it that Consort Wan was the most favored in the harem back then, but for some reason she fell out with Emperor Zhou and left the palace in a fit of anger to become a teacher at Tianlu Academy. She didn't return to the palace until she died. I wonder what happened back then that made Consort Wan take back all the love tokens that she gave out. It seems like she didn't leave any hope for Emperor Zhou. Now it seems like Emperor Zhou values Xiao so much because of Consort Wan. Upon seeing Emperor Zhou's emotional state, Xiao still had a gentle smile on his face. But to Chu Luiwei, this smile was clearly distant. It was obvious that Xiao didn't care about Emperor Zhou's series of reactions. Before Mother left back then, she told me that she had placed this item on the 6th floor of Zhou Tower. She also reminded me not to tell you unless I had no choice. So please forgive me, Father. Emperor Zhou was dazed. As expected, she still hates me. You're doing this for her own good, so it's only right that you don't tell me. Since this item is already with you, you can keep it safe from now on. Then Emperor Zhou sighed as if he had aged a lot in an instant. We are tired. We will return to the palace first. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left without waiting for the others to say anything. The Empress was stunned and at a loss. Gone. His Majesty left just like that. Wasn't he asking Xiao how he got to the 6th floor? Xiao only mentioned the jade pendant and he actually stopped asking? The Empress turned around and glanced at Emperor Zhou, who had already left. Her rationality told her that she should immediately follow him. However, too many things had happened today and she could no longer control the impulse in her heart. Therefore she persisted in asking, Princely, this jade pendant is Consort Wan's relic. You risked your life to retrieve it, which is a sign of filial piety and worthy of praise. But you still haven't explained clearly how you got to the 6th floor. Suddenly a sneer came from the side. The empress turned around and realized that it was Yi Zhiding. He waved the fan in his hands and slowly said, "Princess Consort Wan, don't you think so? Don't you know that the jade pendant is a yuan instrument?" The empress was dazed. What? That item is on the 6th floor. Rong Xiu has Consort Wan's bloodline, so he can naturally go up successfully. Yi Zhiding was originally filled with doubts. However, when he saw the jade pendant, he immediately understood everything. Now that he saw the empress's overbearing manner, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. He lazily said, "It seems like the empress doesn't know about this." "That's right. This is between His Majesty and Consort Wan. It's normal for the empress not to know." The empress was so angry that her face turned pale, but she didn't dare to talk back to Yi Zhiding in public. Even though she was the empress, even Emperor Zhou had to give Yi Zhiding some face, let alone her. There were so many pairs of eyes looking at her, which made her even more embarrassed. "It seems like I can't do anything to Rong Xiu and Chu Liyue today. I have to find another time." Thinking of this, the empress forced a smile. "Thank you for clearing my doubts, Elder Yi. His Majesty has already left, so I won't stay any longer." Then she hurriedly turned around and chased after Emperor Zhou. "Father, please wait." Rong Xiu suddenly spoke, and his voice was as cold as jade clashing against each other. Emperor Zhou, who had already walked a distance away, turned around in confusion. "What's wrong?" Rong Xiu stepped forward. "Your son has a request." He stood there tall and straight. His body was clearly stained with messy blood stains, but his eyes were calm and noble, making one unconsciously respect him. Emperor Zhou asked, "What's wrong? What's the matter?" Rong Xiu's thin lips curved up into a perfect smile. "This time I entered Juyo Tower to save Ms. Chu. It's fake, but it's true that I adore Ms. Chu." Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat. Then he saw the man, who was always elegant and graceful, stretch out his long arm, lift his robe and kneel down. "I don't have any other wishes in this life. I only want to hold one person's hand and grow old with her, just like what Mother said. Father, please grant me this marriage." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from IUN. Chapter 310. Chu Liyue had never seen this man kneel before. In the eyes of outsiders, he was the weak Prince Li, gentle, humble, and aloof from worldly affairs. However, she knew that his strength was tyrannical and he was decisive in killing. He was a supreme and honorable expert. A man like him would never lower his head to anyone. But now he knelt down so decisively for her. All for the sake of a legitimate marriage contract. Chu Liyue felt something overflowing from her heart, which made her limbs numb and dazzled. Everything around her became blurry, and only that person's figure became clearer. He was dressed in white and his body was covered in blood. Those terrifying wounds were a ghastly sight to behold. However, his shoulders were straight, and it was as if he could always shelter her from the wind and rain. He left so many wounds on his body without hesitation, but he couldn't bear to stain her body with even a little bit of blood. He said, "It's true that I admire her." He said, "Hold her hand and we'll grow old together." He said. Chu Liyue's eyes reddened and something sturdy in her heart seemed to shatter. She suddenly thought that if she didn't experience the heart-wrenching betrayal in her previous life and if she didn't get reborn, she might not have met Rong Xiu in her entire life. If Rong Xiu was heaven's compensation for her, then she was finally willing to accept all the pain that she had gone through in the past. Some scars would never fade, and once one saw them they would remember everything that they had gone through. However, there was finally someone who could give her more joy and fill up all the regrets, giving her a peaceful and happy future. This was probably her greatest luck. Rong Xiu's words shocked everyone present. Emperor Zhou almost suspected that he had heard wrongly. What did you say? Why you want me to bestow marriage between you and Lu Yu?" Rong Xiu lightly nodded and his expression was calm and determined. This clearly wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. Emperor Zhou opened his mouth and scanned the two of them with a complicated gaze. Rong Xiu was actually interested in Chu Liyue. Even though he was surprised, it was still within his expectations. In terms of appearance, Chu Liyue was absolutely devastatingly beautiful. In terms of strength, Chu Liyue had just taken first place twice in the Qingjiao competition. He was undoubtedly a top genius. In terms of family background, although Chu Liyue and his daughter had completely fallen out with the Chu family, Chu Luiyue was now the commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guards, and Chu Luiyue was Yi Zhiding's only disciple. No matter how one looked at it, Chu Luiyue was definitely worthy of Rongxiu. Moreover, this time it was Rongxiu who took the initiative to speak. For so many years, Rongxiu had never asked for anything except this time. And it was to ask for a marriage contract. Emperor Zhou suddenly recalled that Rongxiu had used all sorts of reasons to reject him when he asked him to choose a princess consort. At that time he didn't think about it, but now that he thought about it, perhaps he already had this idea at that time. How could he have failed to see that? But after the shock, Emperor Zhou's thoughts changed, and he suddenly felt that this was not bad. Rongxiu should have gotten married. Chu Luiyue was so outstanding and could risk her life to save him. She was indeed the best candidate. His expression changed slightly. Rongxiu's sudden marriage proposal caught everyone off guard. Many ladies in the crowd looked disappointed and regretful. I didn't expect Prince Li to like Chu Luiyue. There's nothing strange about this. After all, Chu Luiyue is outstanding in all aspects. In the past, many people avoided her because she offended the Chu family and the crown prince. However, the situation changed after the Qingjiao competition. I heard that a few young masters from aristocratic families wanted to propose to her. However, since Prince Li has personally spoken, the others definitely don't have a chance. Actually, other than being outstanding, Prince Li isn't good in other aspects. Strength is everything. There's nothing special about a sickly person like him. Anyway, His Majesty loves Prince Li. So what if he's sickly? I think some people are just sour grapes because they can't eat them. Don't spout nonsense. Zhou Xian, who was standing in a secluded corner, felt her limbs turn cold as she dazedly watched the scene from afar. All sorts of discussions entered her ears, and they were like daggers stabbing into her heart. She was clearly not injured, but she felt pain all over for some reason. Previously, when she saw that Rongxiu was severely injured, she was still worried and wanted to go forward to comfort him. But now her legs felt like they were filled with lead and they were extremely heavy. She clearly heard what Rongxiu said previously. He actually said that he admires Chu Luiyue. He even took the initiative to ask for her hand in marriage. I've known Rongxiu for so many years, but I've never heard him say the word beg. Now he's actually willing to do this for Chu Luiyue. What's so good about that cunning and sinister Chu Luiyue? Zhou Xian clenched her fists and harshly shut her eyes. Chu Ning quietly walked to Chu Luiyue's side and threw her a questioning gaze. What's going on with Prince Li? Why did he suddenly ask His Majesty to grant him a marriage? He said that he admires you. Is it true? Does you like Prince Li? Chu Ning's gaze swept across the two of them and felt that his question was a waste of time. If the two of them really had no feelings for each other, why would they come out of Jiao Tower together? I actually didn't notice it at all. Emperor Zhou looked at Rongxiu and many thoughts flashed across his mind. In the end, he was only left with Rongxiu's last sentence. He enunciated every word clearly. Have you decided on her? Rongxiu nodded. Father, please grant my wish. Emperor Zhou then looked at Chu Luiyue. What about you? Chu Luiyue took a deep breath in. It's Lu Yu's fortune. Emperor Zhou kept quiet for a while and finally smiled. Since that's the case then, at this point a voice suddenly sounded from afar. Wait. I don't agree to this marriage. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from IUN. Chapter 311. The crowd turned around and realized that it was the crown prince, Rongjin. Ever since he was publicly humiliated by Mu Qinghe at the palace banquet, Rongjin had been staying in Crown Prince Mansion. He originally planned to come out after the commotion died down. Hence, he didn't do anything even when he heard about Jiao Tower's changes. However, he heard that his father and mother were here, so he hurried over. He didn't expect to hear Rongxiu begging his father for a marriage once he arrived. Furthermore, the marriage was bestowed upon him and Chu Luiyue. Rongjin couldn't care about anything else as he stopped him without thinking. Rongjin hastened his footsteps and rushed to Emperor Zhou under the crowd's gazes. He swallowed his saliva and spoke with much difficulty. Father, you can't agree to the marriage. Emperor Zhou knitted his brows. Crown Prince, you're too rude. Who does he think he is? Why did he suddenly appear at this time and speak with such a tone? Rongjin was shocked and then realized that what he was doing wasn't very appropriate. However, the situation was urgent and he had no other choice. Seeing Rongjin like this, the Empress's heart skipped a beat when she thought of his stupid words about remarrying Chu Luiyue as the crown princess. Is Rongjin crazy for appearing at this time? Crown Prince, this has nothing to do with you. You can leave now, said the Empress calmly with a hint of warning in her tone. However, Rongjin couldn't listen to anything at this point. He finally realized that he liked Chu Luiyue. How could he let it go? It was impossible for him to give her to someone else. Thinking of this, he clenched his teeth and directly knelt down. Father, the bestowment of marriage is of great importance. Please reconsider. Emperor Zhou knitted his brows even tighter. Marriage is a good thing, but why does it sound like a bad thing when Rongjin says it? You don't agree? Rongjin, even though you're the crown prince, it's not up to you to say anything when I want to grant a marriage. Emperor Zhou was still unhappy with Rongjin because of what happened at the palace banquet. In addition to the series of events that happened today, Emperor Zhou had long lost his patience. Hence he didn't give Rongjin any face. The Empress sensed that he was on the verge of exploding in anger, so she hurriedly went forward and wanted to help Rongjin up. Didn't you hear what your father said? Hurry up and get up. Prince Li and Miss Chu are in love with each other and are a perfect couple. If you continue to speak nonsense, don't blame Imperial Mother for punishing you. The Empress pinched Rongjin's arm hard and shot him a threatening look from an angle that the crowd couldn't see. Rongjin's impression of Emperor Zhou had already deteriorated quite a bit. If this continued, his position as the crown prince would really be in danger. Rongjin was in pain, but he was even more conflicted. How could he not know what the consequences of his actions would be? But he couldn't help but look at Chu Luiyue. The woman was slender and elegant. Even though her body was stained with blood, it didn't detract from her elegance. In the past, this woman clearly belonged to him. Even though he cancelled the marriage agreement because of his momentary foolishness, he definitely couldn't accept watching Chu Luiyue get married to someone else. Especially when this person was Xiao. He grabbed the Empress's hand and firmly pried it open. The Empress's heart sank and she heard Rongjin say word by word. Father, I'm serious. This is because I'm also interested in Lu Yu. Gasps could be heard from the crowd. Did I hear wrongly? The crown prince actually said that he's interested in Chu Luiyue? I really don't understand. He had a marriage agreement with Chu Luiyue in the past and he was the one who wanted to cancel it. How long has it been, yet he's regretting it now. Isn't it normal to regret it? The current Chu Luiyue is outstanding in every aspect. If I missed out on such a fiancé, I'd also regret it. Even so, it's not good for the crown prince to go back on his words. Besides, it's clearly Prince Li who proposed the marriage first. Now that the crown prince is interfering, it's a little too much. I don't know what His Majesty is thinking. The crown prince and Prince Li are fighting over a woman in public. It's really... Chu Xianmin, who had rushed over with Rongjin, coldly watched this scene. Her lips under the veil couldn't help but curl up into a mocking smile. She originally thought that her heart would ache, but when she saw Rongjin say those words in public, she shockingly realized that she only wanted to laugh. He has always been like this, hasn't he? In the past, Chu Luiyue was a good-for-nothing who was bullied and miserable. Rongjin felt that this fiancé of his had embarrassed him and didn't want to stay with her for a while. Now that Chu Xinmin's looks were ruined and her reputation was tarnished, he didn't care about her at all. He was always chasing after better things as if all the good things in the world should be his. What a joke. I accompanied and served him day and night, but I didn't get any affection from him. Instead, I have to stand here and watch him go crazy for another woman. Chu Xianmin looked down and hid the ripples in her eyes. Emperor Zhou was shocked. What did you say? Rongjin took a deep breath in and said, in the past I was insensible and didn't cherish Lu Yu. Now that I've come to my senses, I only hope that Father can restore our marriage agreement. I'll definitely treat her well. Father, please grant me my wish. Emperor Zhou almost thought that there was something wrong with Rongjin's brain. He's the one who wants to cancel the marriage agreement and he's the one who wants to restore it. Does he think that this is a joke? Rongjin. Do you know what you're saying? Hollered Emperor Zhou. Rongjin's heart trembled as he knew that Emperor Zhou was really angry. He clearly knew that his actions hurt Emperor Zhou's reputation. But things had already reached this stage and he couldn't back down. He had already knelt down and said what he wanted to say. Wouldn't it be even more laughable if he gave up just like that? Besides, he really didn't want to give up on Chu Liyue. He straightened his back, looked at Emperor Zhou and said, "I've already made up my mind." "So what if you've already made up your mind? You can't be so presumptuous in this matter." Rong Jin choked for a moment. "I'm the crown prince, and Lu Yu is the best candidate for the crown princess." Emperor Zhou was really furious and his chest heaved up and down violently. If they weren't in front of so many people, he would have harshly kicked Rong Jin. In the past, he thought that Rong Jin was good in every aspect and was the best candidate for the crown prince. However, he didn't know when Rong Jin started to become narrow-minded and calculative. He even used despicable means to achieve his goals. He forgave Rong Jin again and again as he always thought that Rong Jin would change. However, it seemed like he was very wrong now. Rong Jin's personality wouldn't change at all. Rong Xiu had asked for Chu Liyue's hand in marriage in public because of his love and gratitude for her. What about Rong Jin? By doing this, he's openly snatching a woman from his brother. Yet this woman was the one he cancelled his marriage agreement with. He had completely disgraced the royal family. Emperor Zhou pointed at Rong Jin's face and sneered. "It seems like you're really tired of being the crown prince. Today I'm going to remove you as the crown prince." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from IUN. Chapter 312. Your Majesty. When the Empress heard the words "remove the crown prince," her limbs turned cold and she instinctively exclaimed, "Your Majesty, please calm down. The crown prince was just being impulsive." "You mustn't." "Being impulsive?" "I think he's clearly relying on his status as the crown prince to think that everything has to be listened to." Emperor Zhou was furious. He doesn't deserve to be the crown prince. He had long known that Rong Jin desired the throne. In the past, he secretly tried to kill third prince. Now he wants to snatch the princess consort from seventh prince. It's not even his turn to sit on the throne, yet he's already so arrogant. Once he takes power in the future, I don't know what he'll become. The Empress's legs turned to jelly and she almost collapsed on the floor. Emperor Zhou's sentence was equivalent to sentencing Rong Jin to death. Once he was really removed, he would never be able to make a comeback. "Your Majesty. It's all my fault. I didn't teach the crown prince well. Please let him off this time." The Empress knelt down and begged. Rong Jin was also dazed. Father. I just want to marry Chu Liyue as my princess consort. I didn't do anything outrageous, so why is father so angry? He even wants to remove my crown prince position. An extremely loud slap suddenly rang out. The Empress harshly slapped Rong Jin and hollered, "Hurry up and apologize to your imperial father." Rong Jin's face was slapped to the side and his cheeks quickly swelled up. Blood even seeped out of the corner of his lips. It was obvious how hard the Empress slapped him. "Why are you in a daze?" The Empress was very anxious. Her face was green and white and tears even flowed out of her eyes. At this point, she really wanted to go forward and slap Rong Jin awake. Does he know what's going on? His Majesty has already spoken. If we don't stop this as soon as possible, the crown prince will definitely be removed. By then it will be impossible to salvage the situation. Rong Jin has always been smart, but why did he become so stupid today? No, I should say that ever since he interacted with Chu Liyue, he gradually became like this. All of this was caused by Chu Liyue. If it weren't for her. Rong Jin was dizzy from the beating, but he finally woke up from the Empress's scolding. He knelt and took 2 steps forward. "Imperial father, please calm down. I know I was wrong." Emperor Zhou sneered. "Do you know your mistake now? Weren't you acting like a crown prince just now?" Actually, even though he was angry that Rong Jin sent someone to assassinate Rong Xiu, he didn't really want to cripple Rong Xiu. The members of the royal family were heartless to begin with. Especially the emperor. If Rong Jin was ruthless enough, it wouldn't be all bad. However, today's matter made him extremely disappointed. Rong Jin actually did such a thing in public for a woman. Such a person would not be able to take on such a huge responsibility. Rong Jin was flustered, and he then realized that things were developing in an uncontrollable direction. "Father, I didn't." But Emperor Zhou couldn't be bothered to listen to his explanation. "Men, pass down the decree. Your Majesty, please wait." The Empress suddenly thought of something and her eyes lit up. She hurriedly said, Your Majesty, did you forget country Xingluo's previous invitation? Previously you already agreed to send Rong Jin over and there are less than 20 days left. If you cripple Rong Jin's position as the crown prince now, how are you going to deal with this matter? Emperor Zhou paused and knitted his brows tightly. He had almost forgotten about this matter. Actually, this invitation wasn't the most important thing. The key was that country Xingluo wanted Rong Jin and Situ Xingshan to have a marriage alliance. If Rong Jin was crippled now, then there would indeed be a lot of trouble. He still couldn't be sure if the other party valued Rong Jin's position as the crown prince or himself. Emperor Zhou was stuck in a dilemma and fell silent. When Situ Xingshan, who wasn't far away, heard this, she was dazed. What does this mean? When did Father and Emperor Zhou agree on this? Why don't I know? Besides, I don't even know that Rong Jin is going. Country Xingluo and country Yaochen have always minded their own business. Why are they suddenly so close to each other? As the eldest princess, I don't know anything about this. Just as Situ Xingshan was filled with doubts, her heart suddenly lit up. Wait, could it be because of what Elder Lian Ning said before? Father wants me to have a marriage alliance with Rong Jin? I don't even know why Father has such a thought and he seems very insistent on it. Situ Xingshan's face turned ugly. I don't like Rong Jin at all. If this can make Father give up on the idea of a marriage alliance, I really want it to happen. However, Emperor Zhou seemed very hesitant. The Empress saw that the situation seemed to have taken a turn for the better, so she immediately pushed it further. Your Majesty, Rong Jin made a huge mistake today and you can punish him however you want. However, the crown prince's matter concerns the entire country. You must think twice. Emperor Zhou's expression softened. It wasn't because he still had hope for Rong Jin, but he really did have to consider country Xingluo. The Empress hurriedly signaled to the few officials who rushed over with her eyes. Those few people were originally from the crown prince's faction, so they naturally tried their best to fight for Rong Jin. Your Majesty. What the Empress said made sense. The crown prince was foolish for a moment, but he doesn't deserve to die. Please be magnanimous and give him a chance. The crown prince has been very outstanding all these years, and he has worked hard day and night just to share some of your burden. Even if he didn't make any contributions, he still worked hard. Your Majesty, if you really remove the crown prince's position because of this, what will Prince Li and Ms. Chu do in the future? Chu Luiyue raised her brows slightly. She didn't like hearing this. What does Rong Jin's own death have to do with me and Rong Xiu? I haven't even said that I'm disgusted by Rong Jin's actions today. Rong Xiu's expression was as calm as usual. He smiled lightly and said, The Empress is right. Sirs, your words are not without reason. Father, I just want to ask you for a marriage. I don't want things to escalate to this stage. If you really don't forgive brother today, then it's my fault. Emperor Zhou sighed deeply. Rong Xiu, you've always been sensible. If it weren't for my poor health, the crown prince position would have been mine long ago. Where would Rong Jin be? What a pity. Emperor Zhou's regretful expression stabbed the Empress and Rong Jin's hearts again. But at this point they didn't dare to show any unhappiness no matter what. After a stalemate, Emperor Zhou finally looked at Chu Luiyue. Luiyue, what do you think? Chu Luiyue bent his knees and bowed. Your Majesty is wise. Ever since the crown prince broke off the engagement with me, we haven't interacted with each other. So, I don't know why he suddenly acted this way today. On the other hand, Prince Li has helped me time and time again. Luiyue is very grateful. So, Luiyue is willing to take care of Prince Li for the rest of his life and never betray him. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from AI Network. Chapter 313. She enunciated every word and sentence clearly. Emperor Zhou looked at Chu Luiyue with a deep gaze. After a while he finally spoke. Chu Luiyue, daughter of the Imperial Guard's commander Chu Ning, is gentle, elegant, and dignified. I like you very much. Today it's time for my 7th son, Prince Li, to get married. For the beauty of Prince Li, I specially betroth Luiyue to Prince Li as his princess consort. The wedding will be held on a date. Emperor Zhou's low and powerful voice clearly echoed in the crowd's ears. Everyone was silent for a moment. Before this, nobody expected Prince Li to marry Chu Luiyue. These two people who didn't seem to have much interaction actually became a couple. Now that the imperial edict had been issued, everything was set in stone. Rong Xiu's thin lips curved up slightly. Thank you for your grace, father. This voice finally made the crowd recover their senses. Everyone thanked him and congratulated Chu Ning one after another. No matter what, Chu Liyue would be a princess consort from now on, and her status would naturally be very different from before. Even though Prince Li's health wasn't good and he didn't have much power, His Majesty seemed to favor Prince Li a lot from today's situation. With this, Prince Li's days wouldn't be too bad. As for Chu Liyue, she had previously broken off her engagement with the crown prince. Even though she had become a genius that everyone envied, this matter was still rather sensitive. Now that she was betrothed to Prince Li and Prince Li personally asked for it, it couldn't be better. All in all, this engagement had more advantages than disadvantages to them. Amidst the joyous atmosphere, only Rong Jin's expression didn't look too good. He looked at Chu Liyue in a daze, but he saw that Chu Liyue had already stood up, walked to Rong Xiu's side and helped him up. Rong Xiu coughed a few times and his face turned even paler. Rong Jin clenched his teeth. If it were anyone else who got Chu Liyue, he could accept it. But why did it have to be Rong Xiu? In the past, his mother could not compete with Rong Xiu's mother. Now he could not compete with Rong Xiu. He had long known that his father treated Rong Xiu differently, but now it seemed that it was even more serious than he had imagined. Whatever Rong Xiu wanted, as long as he opened his mouth, Imperial Father would give it to him. As for him, he had been trembling with fear and working diligently for so many years in the position of Crown Prince. In the end, he had not obtained any benefits at all. Instead, he had been publicly humiliated by his Imperial Father and had almost been deposed. How could he feel at ease? After protecting Rong Jin's Crown Prince position, the Empress finally heaved a sigh of relief. When she heard that Emperor Zhou had betrothed Rong Xiu and Chu Liyue, she felt even more fortunate. If that's the case, Chu Liyue can't bewitch Rong Jin anymore. From then on, Rong Jin should completely give up and stop wasting time and energy on Chu Liyue. She glanced from the corner of her eye and discovered that Rong Jin was looking at Chu Liyue and Rong Xiu despondently. She closed her eyes in frustration and tried her best to make her voice sound gentle and calm. Your Majesty, look at the Crown Prince. Crown Prince Rong Jin is impulsive, unreasonable and impudent. From today onwards he will reflect on his mistakes in Crown Prince Mansion. Without my orders he's not allowed to come out. Nobody else is allowed to enter and visit him. This was equivalent to house arrest. Even though he was also under house arrest as a punishment previously, most people did not know about it. But this time, in front of so many people, Rong Jin had completely lost his face. However, the Empress was already very satisfied with this outcome. As long as Rong Jin was not deposed, everything could be restarted. Crown Prince, hurry up and thank him. The Empress glared at Rong Jin warningly. Rong Jin then recovered his senses. Thank you for your forgiveness, father. Emperor Zhou felt annoyed just by looking at him. He grunted coldly and turned to leave. The Empress and the rest hurriedly followed. Eunuch Min first congratulated Rong Xiu, Chu Liyue, and the rest before walking to Rong Jin's side and persuading him. Your Highness, His Majesty and Her Majesty have already left. You must be tired today. Quickly go back and rest. Then he signaled the people beside him with his eyes and quickly walked away. After walking a distance, Eunuch Min turned back to take a look. He waved his horsetail whisk and shook his head. Even if this crown prince keeps his position today, he won't be able to have a stable life in the future. Crown Prince Mansion's people hurriedly went forward and wanted to help Rong Jin up. Rong Jin then realized that there were countless pairs of eyes staring at him from the surroundings. Mockery, and disdain. A strong sense of humiliation surged in his heart, and his face turned green. Chu Xianmin walked over. Your Highness, let's go back. Rong Jin pushed her away. Get lost. Then he hurriedly left with indignation. Chu Xianmin was pushed to the side, but she didn't say anything and just followed him silently. Their figures quickly disappeared from the crowd's sight. Quite a few people secretly sighed. I really didn't expect the crown prince, who was once so favored by the emperor, to have such a day. That's right. Even if he's still the crown prince, it's hard to say what will happen in the future after what happened today. In comparison, the third prince is more outstanding. At least he has outstanding military achievements. He's not like the crown prince who goes back on his words and goes back on his words. I think it's quite a pity for Chu Xianmin. The third Missy of the Chu family used to be so glorious, but now she has fallen to such a state. It seems like the crown prince doesn't treat her well either. Everyone has their own fate. I heard that she bullied Chu Liwei quite a bit back then. Now it's karma. Chu Liwei looked at Rongxiu. Her gaze slowly swept across the wounds on his body, but she still felt terrible in her heart. Rongxiu seemed to know what she was thinking. His pale lips curled up slightly and he nodded lightly. As long as the result was achieved, everything was worth it. Chu Liu's heart ached, but her entire being was immersed in an indescribable sense of relief and happiness. It turned out that there was someone in this world who was willing to do anything for her. Chu Ning watched from the side and narrowed his eyes with a complicated expression. It turns out that Prince Li has long liked you. In the past he could not understand why Prince Li repeatedly helped him and his daughter. Now it seemed like he finally had an answer. Thinking about it carefully, Prince Li was not a bad choice, but it was a pity that his body was a little weak. However, compared to people like Rongjin he was much better. He walked toward Rongxiu. Your Highness. Rongxiu smiled warmly. Lord Chuning, I'm already engaged to you. You don't have to be so polite. Chuning hesitated for a moment and finally said, there are a few things that I want to say in private. You're not allowed to bully Lu Yu. Before Chuning could finish speaking, Yi Zhiding had already spoken. He had a rare look of seriousness on his face as he looked at Rongxiu warningly. She's my only personal disciple. If you dare to let her down, don't blame me for being rude to you. Chuning was speechless. Damn, someone else has already snatched my lines. Rongxiu's smile deepened. Of course. Don't worry, Elder Yi and Lord Chuning. Yi Zhiding wanted to say something, but Elder Wei Yun suddenly exclaimed. Director. Oh no. That ferocious beast is gone. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 314. Yi Zhiding was shocked. What's going on? Elder Wei Yun rushed over with an anxious expression. We checked the area under Jiu Tower just now, but we didn't find any aura of that ferocious beast. At first we thought that it was because Jiu Tower had collapsed so it was temporarily quiet. But after waiting for a while there was still no movement. Only then did we realize that the ferocious beast was no longer in the pit of heavenly origins. Chu Liyue's eyes flashed. Yi Zhiding hurriedly walked toward the ruins. How is this possible? If it had escaped, the silver pestle would have reacted. Although the locking heaven formation was broken, the silver pestle was still very useful. He could detect anything that happened in Jiu Tower. However, he didn't notice anything unusual just now. Elder Wei Yun was also very nervous as he wiped the sweat off his forehead. We've been investigating this for a long time, but we didn't find anything. Yi Zhiding had already walked to the side of the collapsed Jiu Tower. He closed his eyes and his origin power surged out. In an instant it covered him. After a while he opened his eyes and frowned. That bastard is really gone, Sun Zhongyan asked blankly. Martial uncle, you said that the ferocious beast is no longer around. What do you mean? Did the ferocious beast run away or was it dead? Yi Zhiding was silent for a while before turning to look at Tu Luiwei and Rongxiu. When the two of you were in Jiu Tower, did you discover anything unusual? Chu Liyue's eyebrows twitched. Rongxiu was the first to speak. Not at all. At that time both of us were on the 6th level when Jiu Tower suddenly collapsed. It wasn't easy for us to get out. Chu Luiwei glanced at him calmly. Why did Rongxiu keep emphasizing the 6th floor? Did any of you go to the next level? Yi Zhiding asked again. Chu Luiwei and Rongxiu both shook their heads. Yi Zhiding sighed. This old man must be confused. How could the two of you enter that place? Confusion flashed across Chu Liyue's heart. Elder Yi seemed to know what was on the 7th floor. It was even to the extent that he was very likely aware that the ferocious beast was suppressed on the 7th floor. He was the dean of Tianlu Academy, so it was normal for him to know about this. But what's going on with Rongxiu? At that time he was outside the barrier of the 7th level and he saw her come out with his own eyes. But he didn't seem to want others to know this. Obviously he knew that the 7th floor was unusual. Could it be that Rongxiu also knew the secret of the 7th floor? Whether it was the legendary three-eyed eagle or the heavenly square cauldron. Strange. Why did that beast suddenly disappear? Yi Zhiding slowly waved the fan in his hand, perplexed. Sun Zhongyan suddenly said, Oh right, that green sparrow entered Jiu Tower just now. Perhaps I can get some clues from it? Yi Zhiding's eyes lit up. He hurriedly walked toward Mu Qinghe. From the beginning to the end, Mu Qinghe had been watching coldly from the sidelines, but Yi Zhiding didn't mind. As the envoy of the Tianling dynasty, Mu Qinghe naturally had no reason to get involved in this. However, he was powerful and had been watching from the side. Perhaps he knew something. When Yi Zhiding walked over, Hong Yao was squatting on Mu Qinghe's shoulder, casually combing its feathers. Vice Admiral Mu, I have a few questions. Can I ask your fiend? Mu Qinghe glanced at Hong Yao. Hong Yao then stopped and sized Yi Zhiding up. Yi Zhiding coughed. I wonder if your injuries were caused by that ferocious beast? Hong Yao glared at him. Then it angrily turned its head away. Didn't I just suffer some minor injuries? I'm basically healed now, alright? Why did he have to mention this? Mu Qinghe was expressionless. That's right. Yi Zhiding asked again. Then, do you know what happened to it? Hong Yao shook its head frantically. Yi Zhiding didn't quite believe it. Really? Then, at least you should know if it's dead or alive, right? This green sparrow is a high-level fiend and is noble and proud. How can it let the matter rest so easily after it's injured? Hong Yao still shook its head. In the end, it simply buried its head under its wings and refused to speak. Seeing it like this, Yi Zhiding knew that there wouldn't be any results even if he continued to ask, so he could only give up. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. It seems like we have to investigate this matter from another angle. Mu Qinghe suddenly said, Jui is in the Jui Palace. Jiu Tower was built to suppress that ferocious beast, right? Yi Zhiding was stunned for a moment before nodding. That ferocious beast has already disappeared and Jiu Tower's collapse is no longer important. What are you worried about? The most important thing is that the pit of heavenly origins below is still there, isn't it? Mu Qinghe's voice was still cold. Yi Zhiding's head hurt. Vice Admiral Mu is right, but, however, Jiu Tower had already existed since Tianlu Academy existed. Now that it was destroyed as the dean, he was still worried. That ferocious beast is... Many thoughts flashed across Yi Zhiding's mind, but he could only sigh in the end. Since things have already come to this, there's no other way. As he spoke, he turned to look at Elder Wei Yun and the rest. Use the Xian formation to seal this place and clean it up as soon as possible. Everyone hurriedly responded. Sun Zhongyan hesitated for a moment and still asked worriedly, Senior Marshal Uncle, why are you still here? What should we do after that, Uncle Master? Without Jiu Tower, the power in the pit of heavenly origins below is still unbearable for most of the students. Don't worry about this. After some time we can just build a 9-story tower here. This new 9-story tower definitely won't be as powerful as the old Jiu Tower, but it can at least provide some space for the students to cultivate. Since that ferocious beast is no longer here, there's no need to be too worried. Everyone looked at each other and realized that this was the best solution, so they could only agree. Then Sun Zhongyan quickly let the students leave, leaving only the elders and teachers to deal with the ruins together. Mu Qinghe didn't want to stay any longer and turned to leave. However, when she walked past Chu Luiyue, she looked at her meaningfully. Your ability seems to be stronger than I thought. Chu Luiyue looked calm. Vice Admiral Mu is overpraising me. You know very well whether I'm overpraising you or not. After all, not everyone can rely on the Yuan instrument to reach the 6th level. Mu Qinghe's eyes were filled with scrutiny. Chu Luiyue smiled. Actually, this is all thanks to Dumpling. Luyu is just a stage 2 warrior. He's really not enough. After the battle with Heng Jingchua in the Qingjiao competition, everyone knew that she had an unusual blood ferret. Mu Qinghe's gaze flashed past Dumpling, who was on Chu Luiyue's shoulder, and she suddenly said, I feel that your aura seems to be stronger than before. I seem to have seen the aura of your magical beast somewhere before. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Chapter 315. Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows in surprise. Oh. Where did Vice Admiral Mu see a magical beast similar to Dumpling? If they were fated to meet, Dumpling must have hit it off very well. Mu Qinghe stared at Chu Luiyue as if he was considering whether she meant what she said. It's the magical beast of an old friend of mine. But it's not a blood ferret, but... He paused and a cold smile suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth. Forget it, it's already dead, there's no need to mention it. Chu Liyue's heart twitched fiercely. She heard her own voice. That's a pity. It must be very cute if it's similar to Dumpling. But why did the magical beast die? Did it die in battle? Mu Qinghe's smile slowly disappeared and his expression was as cold as ice. It's just that its master died, so it was buried along with him. But because the magical beast was very strong, it probably knew that it wouldn't be easy to die, so it chose to self-destruct. Every word was like a sharp knife, ruthlessly stabbing into Chu Liyue's heart. Although she had already expected it, she still couldn't accept it when she heard it with her own ears. Oh, right, that old friend of mine is the one I said you were similar to. Mu Qinghe's face was expressionless, and his tone was very calm, as if he was talking about something very ordinary. Chu Liyue forced her lips to move, but her limbs were cold and it was almost impossible for her to move. Is that so? Cough cough, cough cough. Rongxiu, who was next to her, suddenly coughed violently. Chu Liyue quickly looked over. Your Highness Prince Li, are you okay? Rongxiu finally stopped and his lips were pale as he smiled. Nothing. Just a little tired, Chu Liyue immediately said. Then I'll send you back to the Prince Li's residence. A faint smile appeared on Rongxiu's face. Thank you very much. Chu Ning was also a little worried. I will go with you. After saying that, they planned to leave together. Mu Qinghe was still standing there looking at Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue took a step forward, then turned his head and asked, What's the matter? Vice Admiral Mu, is there anything else? Mu Qinghe paused and didn't say anything. She turned around and left. Chu Ning looked at his back view, walked to Chu Liyue's side and whispered, Did you offend Vice Admiral Mu before? Chu Liyue curled her lips nonchalantly. Perhaps. But that was not important. After Emperor Zhou and the others left, Rongxiu and the rest quickly returned. Seeing that the matter was over, the people who had gathered together went back to their own places. Tianlu Academy became deserted again. Yijiding looked at the ruins of Jiuyou Tower and rubbed his glabella with a headache. The imperial city has really become more and more chaotic recently. Elder Yi. A voice was suddenly heard. Yijiding looked up and quickly furrowed his brows. Fu Yunshan? Tinghan? Elder Yi, I didn't expect this to happen. We came late and couldn't help. I'm really sorry. Fu Yunshan explained regretfully. Chenghan's gaze swept across the ruins and he was very proud. He couldn't help but tease. Yeah. Jiuyou Tower seemed to have existed since Tianlu Academy existed. Now that it's destroyed, Elder Yi must be very upset, right? However, there's nothing we can do about this. That ferocious beast is too powerful. It's fine as long as everyone is fine. Elder Yi, don't you think so? Yijiding squinted his eyes and looked at the two of them before he laughed. That's right. This time, it's indeed because our academy isn't strong enough that things developed to this stage. That ferocious beast is indeed very strong. Even if you helped, it wouldn't have been of much use. After all, your abilities. This old man has always been very straightforward. You don't mind, right? Fu Yunshan's expression instantly became very awkward. He secretly gave Chenghan a look. I already said that with Yijiding's cultivation level, he would definitely be able to sense that we were nearby. We could have helped, but we didn't. Yijiding must have a grudge against us. Chenghan was a little embarrassed by the mockery, but on second thought, Tianlu Academy suffered a huge loss after all. Just this point alone would make him happy for a long time. Thus he didn't care about Yijiding's words at all. Elder Yi, you've been in seclusion for a long time. I'm afraid you don't know a lot of things that have happened outside. Although our abilities can't be compared to yours, we're not as weak as you say. I was just joking. Why did you take it seriously, Chenghan? It's just like when you lost to me back then and said that you would send your disciple to defeat my disciple in the future. Wasn't that just a joke? Chenghan's face froze. Yijiding asked in confusion. Why? Isn't it true? I heard that the pill your disciple used to win the celestial physician competition was refined by my disciple. If you're really still upset about what happened back then, you wouldn't have agreed to let your disciple take first place, right? Chenghan's expression changed and it was very interesting. We haven't seen each other for so many years, but Yijiding is still so merciless. His mouth is really disgusting. I suddenly remembered that our academy is going back tomorrow, and there are some things that we haven't had time to do yet. Since Tianlu Academy is in such a situation, We'll only cause trouble if we continue to stay here. We'll take our leave first. As Qing Han spoke, he turned around and left. Fu Yunshan was also a little embarrassed. He forcefully added a few words and didn't plan to continue staying here. Qing Han walked a few steps and suddenly felt that someone was missing from his side. Situ Xingqian. He looked around but didn't see Situ Xingqian's figure. Did you see Xingqian? He found a familiar student and asked. I think she left just now. Maybe she went back to the inn. Qing Han thought about it and agreed. She must have felt terrible when she saw Rong Xiu and Chu Luiwei being betrothed. It's normal for her to go back. At this time it's good for her to be alone. Qing Han took a deep breath. Let's go. Digression. Tomorrow will still be updated in the afternoon and evening. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 316. Chu Luiwei and Chu Ning followed Rong Xiu back to the Prince Li's mansion. The people of the Prince Li's mansion seemed to have received the news, and their attitude towards Chu Ning and his daughter was particularly attentive and eager, as if they were welcoming their own family. This made Chu Ning a little unaccustomed. After sitting in the Prince Li's mansion for a while, Chu Ning wanted to let Rong Xiu have a good rest, so he left with Chu Luiwei. Rong Xiu sent a carriage to send the two back. At first Chu Ning didn't want to go through so much trouble, but later he was really stubborn and had to agree. The father and daughter got on the carriage and sat on each side. The two looked at each other silently. Chu Ning looked at Chu Luiwei calmly and hesitated to speak as if he was thinking about how to speak. Father, if you have something to say, just say it. Chu Luiwei said softly. Chu Ning hesitated for a moment before saying, Between you and Prince Li? Is there something between you? Chu Luiwei laughed. What do you mean? Chu Ning paused. That is, did you already know that he was interested in you? Yes. Chu Luiwei didn't intend to hide this point. As you think, Prince Li and I did have feelings for each other long ago. That's why today's marriage was granted. Although he had already thought of it, Chu Ning couldn't help but be surprised when he heard it with his own ears. When did this happen? Could it be that, when he saved you, Prince Li saved me first and we didn't know each other at that time? Chu Ning breathed a sigh of relief. In other words, the two gradually got to know each other after Prince Li returned. In this case it was easier for him to accept. Do you really like Prince Li? Chu Ning stared into Chu Luiwei's eyes and asked with a serious expression. Chu Luiwei nodded slightly. Chu Ning was stunned for a while before he murmured. Good. That's good. His expression was a little complicated, as if he was sad and happy at the same time. He understood Yu-Er's character very well. If she was not really interested in Prince Li, then today's bestowment of marriage she would absolutely not agree. Prince Li is a good person. At the very least he was much stronger than Crown Prince Rongjin. In the past Yu didn't have good taste. She liked Rongjin for many years and suffered a lot of humiliation and grievances because of him. But things were different now. He could see that Li Wang valued Yu-Er very much. It could even be said that he regarded her as a treasure. He could finally rest assured. Li Wang's body. Have you checked Li Wang's pulse? Do you have any way to help me recuperate? Prince Li had died of illness when he was still in his mother's womb. He had invited countless celestial physicians since he was young, but there had been no improvement. Otherwise he wouldn't have been sent to Mingyue Tianshan to recuperate for so many years. Chu Luiwei looked at Chu Ning's worried face and felt warm and amused at the same time. Father, don't worry. I'll do my best. No matter what happens to Prince Li's health in the future, I will always take good care of him. Chu Ning sighed and nodded. Good. He had once hoped that Yu-Er could marry an ordinary and healthy person and live a peaceful life. However, Yu-Er had already displayed shocking talent. She definitely wouldn't be as simple and ordinary as an ordinary person in the future. If your mother was still around, she would definitely be very happy. Deep nostalgia flashed across Chu Ning's eyes. Chu Luiwei's heart ached. For so many years, Chu Ning had to be both a father and a mother to bring up Chu Luiwei painstakingly. No one could tell how sad he felt. She leaned forward and held Chu Ning's hand. The father-daughter duo sat in silence for a long time, but the atmosphere was warm and harmonious. The crisp sound of a slap resounded in the room. The Empress looked coldly at Rongjin, who was standing in front of her. You're really crazy today. Jin lowered his head and didn't say a word. I've long said that you shouldn't have any ideas about Chu Luiyue. Are you treating all of it as passing wind? When I saw you lying on the bed earlier, I thought you were just talking nonsense because of your fever. I didn't expect you to run over today and openly snatch Chu Luiyue from Xiao. The Empress's finger was almost poking Jin's head. Your father was right about one thing today. You're really tired of being the crown prince. Jin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and there seemed to be a fire burning in his heart. He finally couldn't help but retort. She's mine. Why did I? You've already broken off the engagement with her. The Empress suddenly raised her voice, and her gaze was as sharp as a knife as it ruthlessly scraped across Jin's body. Don't forget that you were the one who brought it up. What did you say back then? You said that you had to break off the engagement with Chu Luiyue and sever ties with her no matter what price I had to pay. Great, it's only been a few months, but you're acting like you're possessed. What do you want others to think of you, the crown prince? Do you know how much effort I spent back then to push you to the position of crown prince? The Empress's voice was already a little hysterical. Jin looked up and saw that her face was contorted, and her eyes were filled with deep resentment. He was shocked and then realized that the Empress's emotions were exceptionally agitated today. He took a deep breath in and lowered his voice, still feeling indignant. But why does it have to be Xiao? How can that good-for-nothing compare to me? Look at him. He won't be able to stand if he takes 2 more steps. Once he thought that Chu Luiyue was actually betrothed to such a person, he was filled with disgust. The Empress's face darkened and she suddenly sneered. Why do you think? Xiao personally begged your father, so how can your father not agree? You're better than him in every aspect, but who asked him to have a vixen mother? She's been dead for so many years, but she's still haunting me. She couldn't win against that woman back then, and now her son can't win against that woman's son. Doesn't she hate her? Jin then understood that the Empress was like this because she remembered the people and things back then. The Empress seemed to have noticed that she had lost her composure. She took a deep breath in and forced herself to calm down. Anyway, it wasn't easy for you to keep your position today. Your father can tolerate you once or twice, but there definitely won't be a third time. Jin pressed his lips against each other. I know my mistake. What's the use of knowing your mistake? You have to think of a way to make up for it. Jin's eyes lit up. Mother, do you have a way? The Empress stared at him with a deadly gaze. Of course I have a way. However, you have to swear that you'll never mention Chu Luiyue again from now on. You'll completely give up on this thought. Jin was stunned. But mother, she's the only one I like. The Empress looked at him warningly. Jin subconsciously swallowed his remaining words. After a long time he clenched his fists so tightly that they almost broke. Yes. The Empress heaved a sigh of relief, and her expression became gentler as she picked up the teacup at the side. The only way for you to stabilize your position as the crown prince is to marry Situ Xingqian. Digression. In the car, mobile users can continue to browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 317. What? Jin was dazed. Country Xing Luo previously mentioned to your father that they want you to marry Situ Xingqian. Situ Xingqian has a noble status and is very doted on. If you can marry her, you'll have a strong support. The Empress sipped her tea and coldly glanced at Jin. If it weren't for this, why do you think your father let you off today? Jin knitted his brows. Is this the only way? You're still unwilling? The Empress put down her teacup with a bang and sneered. No matter how you look at it, Situ Xingqian is an extremely good choice for the crown prince. What else are you unhappy about? Even though she didn't really like Situ Xingqian, she had been in the palace for many years and instinctively felt that Situ Xingqian wasn't simple. However, she couldn't care about that now. Jin kept quiet. He was also very clear that his current situation was worrying, and Situ Xingqian was indeed the only person who could help him stabilize his position. Think of a way to contact Situ Xingqian. It's best if you can quickly win her favor. This way things will be much smoother in the future. Jin knitted his brows. But I'm already under house arrest and I can't go out at all. Besides, the Qingjiao competition has already ended and they'll leave tomorrow. What kind of problem is this? As long as you want to, all these can be solved. The Empress didn't care. Unless you really don't want to be the crown prince anymore. Rong Jin clenched his teeth. I understand. Chu Ning and Chu Luiyue returned home together. When they reached the door, the two of them saw a page boy waiting at the door. Chu Luiyue squinted her eyes. She knew this page boy. He's from the Chu family. When the page boy saw Chu Ning and his daughter coming down from the horse carriage, he hurriedly ran over with a respectful expression. Lord Chu Ning, Big Missy, you're finally back. Chu Luiyue and Chu Ning looked at each other. One wouldn't visit a temple for no reason. It was obvious why the Chu family sent someone over. Mu Ting, why are you here? The manservant called Mu Ting nodded and bowed with a fawning expression. He took out an invitation card from his bosom and handed it over respectfully. Lord Chu Ning still remembers me. The first elder said that he would like to invite you back to his residence. Here is the invitation. Chu Ning smiled faintly. Back then you had carry water for you for 3 months, causing her hands to develop frostbite. How could I forget about you? The smile on Mu Ting's face froze abruptly and he felt extremely embarrassed. It was all my fault back then. Please be magnanimous and let me off. This lowly one apologizes to you. Seeing that Chu Ning and Chu Li's expressions did not change, he gritted his teeth and ruthlessly slapped his own face. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. I deserve to die. Damn it. His cheek quickly became red and swollen, leaving behind a clear palm print. Chu Ning didn't say anything, so he didn't dare to stop. It was only when Chu Liuyue's mouth was filled with blood that Chu Ning sneered and led her toward the door. Seeing that the two were about to leave, Mu Ting panicked and hurriedly chased after them. Lord Chu Ning, I beg you to accept this invitation card. Otherwise, this lowly one won't be able to explain himself when I return. Chu Ning didn't want to pay any attention to him, not even giving him an extra glance. Mu Ting simply knelt down and kowtowed. Lord Chu Ning, I beg you. Eldest young miss, please persuade Lord Chu Ning. The corners of Chu Liuyue's mouth curled up slightly as he took the invitation card and opened it with interest. This letter was personally written by the first elder, Chu Xiao, and the wording was very polite. It was clear that he wanted to reconcile. Chu Ning frowned as a trace of disgust flashed across his eyes. What's so good about this kind of thing? It will only dirty your eyes. Chu Liuyue blinked at him and then looked at Mu Ting. You're saying that if we don't deliver this invitation card today, we'll die when we return? Mu Ting said gratefully. That's right. Eldest young miss, that's great. Just take it well. Chu Liuyue smiled and stuffed the invitation card back into Mu Ting's hands. Have a good trip. I won't send you off. Mu Ting was dumbfounded. Then he realized something and his face paled. Eldest young miss, my father and I have already completely severed ties with the Chu clan. I really can't accept being called eldest young Mississippi with that. Chu Luiyue and Chu Ning turned to leave. Mu Ting's face was filled with despair. Seeing the two figures about to disappear behind the door, he anxiously shouted. Lord Chu Ning. The first elder said that even if you don't want to return to the Chu clan, please consider the patriarch. Chu Ning stopped in his tracks, a trace of struggle flashing across his face. Chu Luiyue glanced at him. Seeing this, Mu Ting felt that there was hope and shouted again. The patriarch values you the most. If he comes out of seclusion and sees the Chu clan in this state, he will definitely be very disappointed. Chu Liuyue's mouth twitched. Now he was talking about this. When the Chu clan bullied him and his daughter, they didn't consider disappointing the patriarch at all. A trace of hesitation flashed across Chu Ning's heart, but it disappeared in an instant. Scope. He didn't turn back. He pulled Chu Luiyue and was about to leave. Chu Luiyue sighed softly. Father, why don't you go back and take a look? Chu Ning looked up in surprise. Chu Luiyue patted his arm lightly. She didn't have any feelings for the Chu clan. The Chu clan and the patriarch of the Chu clan were not important to her. But Chu Ning was different. After all, the patriarch of the Chu clan was his father. It was impossible to say that there were no ties between them. Chu Luiyue knew very well that the reason Chu Ning had severed ties with the Chu clan was largely because of her. Mu Ting's words didn't mean anything to her, but it inevitably made Chu Ning waver. No matter what, doesn't want to see father unhappy, she said softly. Chu Ning immediately understood what she meant and his heart warmed. After hesitating for a moment, he finally said, Don't worry. Since we've completely severed ties with the Chu clan, we won't go back no matter what. Father will be back soon. In the future I can give the patriarch an explanation. Chu Luiwei nodded. Then I'll wait for you at home. When Mu Ting heard that Chu Ning agreed to go to the Chu clan, she felt that her life had been saved. Thank you, Lord Chu Ning. Thank you, Ms. Luiwei. Chu Ning and Chu Luiwei exchanged a few words, then left with Mu Ting. Chu Luiwei watched Chu Ning leave. Only when he couldn't be seen did she turn around, step through the door and enter the courtyard. She walked towards her room. When she reached the door, she placed her hand on the door intending to push it open. Suddenly she paused and a cold light flashed in her eyes. The next moment she suddenly retreated. A black shadow broke through the door. In the blink of an eye, it rushed in front of Chu Luiwei. Before Chu Luiwei could see the other party's face, she was caught in a huge net. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 318. Chu Luiwei's vision instantly turned dark. This net was very strange. She was trapped in it and all the light was blocked outside. She couldn't see anything. Then she felt herself being pulled up. She was about to speak when a hoarse and threatening voice sounded by her ear. If you want to die faster, just call for help. Chu Luiwei's lips moved, but she didn't say anything. Although she couldn't see the other party's face, this aura seemed familiar. Right. This person is the one following Rongzhen around. Previously, Rongzhen came to find me privately and attacked me because of this person. Rongzhen once said that after the Qingjiao competition ended, she would personally bring me to the forest outside the imperial city. I didn't expect Rongzhen to be so impatient that she wouldn't even wait for a day. Chu Luiwei took out a dagger and tried to cut the net. In the darkness she heard an ear-piercing scratching sound. Chu Luiwei was shocked. There's actually an extremely strong barrier in this net. Don't waste your effort. With your current abilities, it's impossible for you to get out of here. That strange and hoarse voice sounded again with a strong sense of mockery. Chu Luiwei thought for a while and decided to just close her eyes and wait quietly. Rongzhen wanted to find trouble with me and it's just nice. I also want to end this matter once and for all. Chu Luiwei couldn't see the situation outside and could only feel herself being brought away quickly. She silently traced their route in her heart and realized that they were indeed heading out of the imperial city. She didn't know what method this person used, but the entire journey was very smooth and didn't attract anyone's attention. When they left the city gates, Chu Luiwei could even hear the guards' interrogations. But still no one noticed that something was wrong. She was brought out of the city just like that. After leaving the imperial city, that person obviously relaxed a little and sped up again. Suddenly she felt a weight on her shoulder. It was Tuanzi who suddenly came out. It rubbed against Chu Luiwei's neck and seemed a little restless. Chu Luiwei held it in his arms and gently comforted it. She was sure that Dumpling could bite through the net, but she had no intention of doing so at the moment. Dumpling seemed to be aware of her thoughts and immediately nestled in her arms obediently. After about an hour that person finally stopped. Chu Luiwei immediately patted Dumpling's butt and told it to go back. Then he held his breath and waited. Whoosh! The net was suddenly ripped open. A dazzling light instantly shone down. Chu Luiwei subconsciously squinted his eyes to adapt to the change in light. Chu Luiwei. A high and mighty voice came from behind. Chu Luiwei looked back. It was Rongzhen. Are you familiar with this place? Rongzhen crossed her arms and asked coldly. Chu Luiwei looked around. It was lush and verdant in all directions. This was indeed the forest outside the imperial capital. She pondered for a moment as if she was recalling before nodding gently. It's a little familiar. Back then I was almost killed by the people Chu Xianmin sent here. Here? Rongzhen's gaze suddenly changed. The place on your map isn't here. Chu Luiwei smiled bitterly. Yes. But that's where I went after I escaped. At that time they knocked me out and brought me here intending to kill me. Coincidentally I woke up at that time so I escaped. Rongzhen looked at Chu Luiwei suspiciously. You better not let me find out what tricks you're up to. During the Qingjiao competition, Chu Luiwei performed very well and displayed abilities that exceeded everyone's expectations. She could not help but be wary. Chu Luiwei shrugged. This place is deserted. I know I'm not your match so I'll cooperate. As long as you let me go in the end, everything else is negotiable. Xian sneered. You know what's good for you. Chu Liwei did not say anything and looked down slightly. Bring me there now. Xian gave Elder Meng, who was standing behind Chu Liwei, a look. Elder Meng, you must watch her closely. Fourth princess, don't worry. As this hoarse voice rang in her ears, Chu Liwei suddenly felt a cold wind coming from behind her. Her eyes flickered and she immediately became alert. However, it was only for a moment before she restrained her impulse and pretended not to notice anything as she stood there. Swoosh. A rope as thick as a thumb was tightly wrapped around her neck. Elder Meng was holding the other end of the rope in his hands. A fierce look flashed across Chu Liue's eyes. She had never been humiliated like this before. Behave yourself. Xian shouted. Otherwise this rope can take your life any time. Chu Liwei suppressed the anger in her heart and nodded lightly. I know. Lead the way in front. Chu Liwei took a deep breath and took a step forward. The moment she moved, the rope around her neck moved as well. Elder Meng and Xian followed behind. Chu Liwei finally managed to persuade Dumpling not to come out and continued walking forward step by step. Xian couldn't help but chuckle at this scene. If the people in the Imperial City see this scene, their jaws will definitely drop. The famous Chu Liwei actually has such a servile appearance. Xian was delighted. So what if he came in first in the Qingjiao competition? So what if he has a Daijin Yuan meridian? Isn't he like a dog in front of me? I heard that the Crown Prince and Prince Li even fought in front of father to snatch you. If they see you like this, they will regret it so much. Chu Liwei, you are really capable. You didn't say or do anything, but you almost made father remove the Crown Prince. Chu Liwei didn't have much of an expression. I've already cut all ties with the Crown Prince. I didn't expect today's incident either. If fourth princess is still angry because of this, angry? Why would I be angry? Can the Crown Prince blame others for his incompetence? Xian said sarcastically. Chu Liwei paused. That's strange. Xian and Jin were both born of the Empress and they always had a good relationship. Why did they suddenly become like this? From her tone, it seems like she can't wait for Jin to be removed. When my pearl of essence recovers, one day I'll let mother know that Jin is a hopeless case. I am much more outstanding than him. Upon hearing her words, Chu Liwei could basically confirm that Xian and Jin did have a conflict. However, she didn't know why. Just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly felt the rope around her neck being pulled tight. She held her breath and she almost fell. She hurriedly turned around and saw Xian laughing heartily. How interesting. Elder Meng, why didn't I think of such a way to do this in the past? Chu Liwei, why don't you bark twice like a dog and I'll let bygones be bygones? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 319. Chu Liwei stared at Xian quietly. Fourth princess, this joke isn't funny at all. Xian's laughter stopped abruptly and she looked at Chu Liwei. She saw a pair of clear black jade-like eyes staring at her. That pair of eyes was calm and unperturbed, but it inexplicably made one feel fearful. A chill seemed to emerge from the bottom of her heart, causing her to shudder. Realizing that she was actually afraid of Chu Liwei, Xian was enraged and she jerked the rope violently. What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig out your eyeballs. This time, Chu Liwei pulled the rope first and didn't let her do as she pleased. Xian tugged a few times and realized that it didn't budge. She felt even more embarrassed and flew into a rage. Elder Meng, teach her a lesson. Fourth princess. Chu Liwei suddenly spoke, and his lips curved up without any trace of a smile. Did you spend so much effort to bring me out just to teach me a lesson? Xian was taken aback. I know that it's easy for you to kill me here. Perhaps no one will ever find out that it was you, fourth princess, who did it. But, are you sure this is what you want? If I die, your pearl of essence will never recover. How dare you threaten me? Xian's face was a little sinister. She had already suffered enough over the past few days, and now even Chu Liwei dared to speak to her like this. She quickly took 2 steps forward, rushed to Chu Liwei and raised her hand to slap her face. It doesn't matter if I die. I'll kill you, Chu Liwei said slowly. But my father and Prince Li definitely won't let this go. Xian seemed to have heard a joke. Just based on your useless father and that sickly person? Of course, it's not just them. Chu Liyue stared into Rongzhen's eyes and smiled slightly. There's also Vice Admiral Mu. Rongzhen froze and her hand, which was in midair, couldn't fall. Vice Admiral Mu has only chosen me to accompany him to the Tianling dynasty. If something happens to me, what do you think Vice Admiral Mu will do? Rongzhen gritted her teeth. She had almost forgotten about this. Elder Meng tried to persuade him. Fourth Princess, we can't afford to offend Vice Admiral Mu. Of course I know. Rongzhen was furious. It would have been better if she hadn't mentioned this. Now that she mentioned it, she felt even more disgusted with Chu Liyue. What right did Chu Liyue have to be chosen? She had only said a few words and was humiliated in public. However, she couldn't do anything to Chu Liyue. Even though Rongzhen was spoiled and willful, she wasn't brainless. Although he was about to go crazy from anger after thinking about it carefully, what Chu Liyue said was not unreasonable. Right now it was more important to restore his pill of origin. As for the rest, it would be the same in the future. Thinking of this, Rongzhen suppressed the anger in her heart and sternly shouted, "I'll let you off this time. Hurry up and leave." Chu Liyue glanced at her, turned around and continued walking forward. Her words seemed to make Rongzhen sober up a little. On the rest of the journey, Rongzhen didn't cause trouble most of the time. The few of them walked forward calmly. After walking for more than an hour, Rongzhen's legs were sore from all the walking. She impatiently asked, "What's wrong? How far is it?" "Chu Liyue, are you trying to fool me?" Chu Liyue finally stopped. "It's just in front." Rongzhen immediately looked forward. In the lush forest not far away, there was a lake with white fog rising from it. The surroundings were quiet and the sun shone down. The fog on the lake's surface made it look like a fairyland. She couldn't help but take a few steps forward and shockingly realized that the white fog floating above the lake was actually thick force. This is... She widened her eyes and looked at the scene in front of her in disbelief. There's actually such a place outside of the imperial city? As the fourth princess, she was doted on. Not to mention the imperial city, she had even been to half of the good places in country Yaochen. But she had never heard of this place before. The force here is very thick and very gentle. It's indeed a good place to cultivate. Even Elder Meng couldn't help but praise it. Chu Liyue coughed. "I ran here with much difficulty back then and coincidentally met that mysterious man. This should be his territory, but I didn't know if he would appear today." Rongzhen looked at the lake in amazement. She took a deep breath and felt as if her organs were flowing smoothly. "This is really a good place to cultivate. You're honest." She threw the other end of the rope to Old Meng and rushed to the lakeside in excitement. Up close, the lake was even clearer and more beautiful. She looked around and realized that there was no one else here other than the few of them. "Is that mysterious man not here today? Elder Meng, is there anyone nearby?" Elder Meng shook his head. "No. He didn't sense anyone's aura." "That's strange. Why is there no one watching over this place?" Rongzhen walked a few steps around the lake with a confused look. "It would be great if this lake belonged to me. Cultivating here would definitely be twice the result with half the effort. It's a pity that my pearl of essence is broken now, so I can't cultivate here. If that's the case, it will only be harmful." Thinking of this, Rongzhen's heart itched. "Chu Liyue, since that mysterious man was willing to help you, do you have a way to contact him?" Chu Liyue shook his head. "How can such a person be controlled by me? Even I don't know what he looks like." Rongzhen didn't expect Chu Liyue to know, so she was disappointed when she heard this. Such a strong presence indeed wouldn't be restricted to one place. However, they had already come all the way here. If they returned empty-handed, wouldn't that be too shameful? Suddenly her eyes lit up. "Oh right. Previously you said that you met that person when you were in danger. If you encounter a similar situation now, will he appear again?" Chu Liyue knitted his brows. "Fourth princess, what do you mean?" "I don't mean anything." Rongzhen slowly walked to Chu Liyue and sized her up with ill intentions. "I just want to give it a try. Don't worry, I won't really want you to die. Fourth princess, you think too highly of me." Chu Liyue said lightly. Rongzhen sneered. "You're no longer the same as before. Even Vice Admiral Mu favors you. How can I say that I think highly of you? You just have to." Just as her hand was about to strangle Chu Liyue's neck, a strange sound came from the lake. Rongzhen immediately turned around. Under the white fog, she could vaguely see circles of ripples spreading from the center of the lake to the surroundings. She couldn't hide her excitement as she hurriedly walked over. But just as she reached the side of the lake, a huge white figure suddenly rushed out of the lake. It was heading straight for her. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 320. Elder Meng, save me! Rongzhen exclaimed as she sensed the incoming danger and immediately called for help. Elder Meng already knew that something was amiss when the white figure broke out of the water and immediately rushed forward. But even though he was fast, the other party was even faster. Swoosh! The sound of something being cut was heard. The next moment, Rongzhen's body flew backward. She fell harshly to the ground. The front of her shirt was quickly dyed red with blood. Fourth princess. Elder Meng was shocked. He looked up. However, what appeared in front of them was actually a muscular white lion. It quickly rushed out of the water and flew in the air, exuding a strong suppressive aura. This was clearly a high-level fiend. Elder Meng's heart was in his mouth. Even if he was a stage 5 warrior, it wouldn't be easy for him to deal with this fiend. He wanted to go forward and save Rongzhen, but the scary white lion didn't budge an inch. It was impossible to break through it head-on. Rongzhen, who was lying on the ground, kept wailing. She didn't even see what the other party looked like before she was beaten to the ground. Her organs were all squeezed into a ball and a few of her ribs seemed to be broken. She couldn't even move. After her pearl of essence was broken, she lost all her strength and couldn't even defeat a normal adult man. She was no different from a good-for-nothing. How could she withstand such a fierce attack? Elder Meng. Elder Meng. Rongzhen's face was pale as she kept spitting out blood. She struggled to get up. But the moment she moved, it hurt like hell. Besides, she couldn't exert any strength in many parts of her body. Roar! The white lion roared at the sky. Rongzhen trembled in fear. Elder Meng suddenly realized something and turned to look at Chu Liwei. It's you, swoosh. Chu Liwei had an extremely sharp dagger in his hand and he slashed at the rope harshly. Elder Meng laughed mockingly. This rope is made of gold, silk and white iron. You're too naive if you want to cut it with a mere dagger. Before he could finish speaking, Chu Liwei raised the dagger and cut the rope. The cut was neat and tidy. It looked extremely easy. Chu Liwei's lips curled up slightly. It seems that this thing of yours isn't that great. Elder Meng's anger burned as he gathered origin power in his palm. Then he swung it out. Boom! A ball of extremely pure origin power rushed towards Chu Liwei. Chu Liwei tapped the ground with the tip of his foot, and jumped away as light as a swallow. At the same time he shouted, "Dumpling!" A small red figure suddenly flashed by. Then he went straight for that ball of origin power. Puff! It rushed in, and its figure was instantly engulfed by the light of the origin power. Elder Meng sneered. You overestimate yourself. He had long heard that Chu Liwei had a strange blood ferret that directly swallowed Heng Jingchua's force. But he was different from Heng Jingchua. He was a rank 5 warrior and was much stronger than Heng Jingchua. Chu Liwei was delusional to think that he could use the same trick he used on Heng Jingchua to deal with him. It was simply wishful thinking. But at this moment, a hole suddenly appeared in that ball of dazzling origin power. A furry tail poked out. Elder Meng suddenly froze. In the next moment he saw that the ball of origin power suddenly collapsed from the middle. That blood ferret opened its mouth and sucked hard. The origin power turned into a stream of light and entered its body. Elder Meng was completely stunned. Elder Meng, save me! Rongzhen's shrill scream brought Elder Meng back to his senses. He turned back and saw that the white lion had already raised its claws and slammed down again. Boom! A strong gust of wind suddenly blew. Rongzhen's body flew up again and fell to the ground in an even more tragic manner. This time there were more bloodstains on her body, making her look even more ashen. Fourth princess. Elder Meng was extremely anxious as he hurriedly rushed over. But this time he still couldn't get close. That white lion was extremely strong and it was extremely easy for it to stop him. Seeing that Rongzhen was tortured beyond recognition, Elder Meng angrily glared at the white lion but was shocked to see that Chu Liwei was already standing beside the white lion. More importantly, that white lion seemed to be very docile in front of her. Her hand was placed on the white lion's head, gently caressing it. Shui, well done. Chu Luiyue praised it sincerely. Ever since Rongzhen secretly found her, she had already started planning this counterattack. Since Rongzhen said that she would bring her here, she would definitely do it. It was just a matter of time. She had already told Shui to wait here and planned to come after the Qingjiao competition ended. Even if Rongzhen didn't find her, she would have gone to find her. So, even though today's incident was very sudden, it was all within her control. The murderous look in Shui's eyes instantly disappeared, and it became extremely obedient as it rubbed against Chu Liyue's palm coquettishly. "Tis, is this your fiend?" "No, impossible." Elder Meng was stunned by the scene in front of him and didn't feel good. When exactly did Chu Liyue have such a strong presence? Also, this fiend seems to be very obedient to her. Even if it's not her fiend, there doesn't seem to be any difference. Shui looked up at Chu Liyue and wanted to ask for another round of praise, but its gaze suddenly froze, and it stared deadly at Chu Liyue's neck. Upon seeing its expression, Chu Liyue then touched her neck in hindsight. The marks left by the rope were very clear. She curved her eyes. "It's okay. It's just a flesh wound." But Shui's eyes seemed to be burning with fire. To a fiend, having a rope around their neck was a very humiliating thing. It was even more so for humans. "How dare they treat me like this?" Or, Shui roared angrily. Rongzhen heard this sound and was so frightened that her entire body trembled. She forced her eyes open and looked at Shui. For some reason she felt that this scene was very familiar. Right. The high-level fiend I met in the hunting ground back then seemed to be white. And this aura is exactly the same. Elder Meng. This white lion is the fiend that destroyed my pearl of essence. Rongzhen shouted in a hoarse voice. "Quick. Tell father and mother." Digression. Update at 12 noon tomorrow. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 321. Elder Meng was shocked. When Rongzhen went to the hunting ground to hunt that high-level fiend, he didn't follow her. In addition, when Rongzhen fell off the cliff, she didn't see the other party's face clearly, so no one knew what the high-level fiend that hurt her looked like. They originally thought that the matter would be left unsettled, but they didn't expect to encounter it again today. Also, this fiend clearly has a close relationship with Chu Liyue. Elder Meng made a prompt decision and took out a thumb-sized silver cylinder. That was the special SOS tube used by Country Yao Chen's royal family. As long as force was injected, it would explode immediately. Chu Liyue narrowed her eyes. She had heard of this before. It was also called a silver fly. Every member of Country Yao Chen's royal family had one, and they wouldn't use it unless it was a critical moment. This also meant that once this thing was activated, it meant that one's life was in danger. The royal family's people could quickly rush over based on the signal sent out by this thing. More importantly, after this silver fly exploded, everyone within a 1-kilometer radius would be stained with a special smell. Those people could use this smell to continue their pursuit. If that was the case, it would unintentionally cause a lot of trouble. Chu Liyue raised her hand and swiftly threw the dagger out. The dagger was extremely fast and hit Elder Meng's wrist in an instant. The silver fly fell to the ground. Elder Meng panicked and immediately went forward to snatch the silver fly back. Shui raised its claws and waved it harshly. A few sharp rays of light flew out instantly. Elder Meng was shocked and immediately dodged. A red shadow flashed past. The next moment, Dumpling held the silver fly in its mouth and appeared in front of Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue took the silver fly and lightly patted Dumpling's head. "You're smart." Dumpling proudly wagged its tail and then shook its butt at Rongzhen and Elder Meng with a look of disdain. Elder Meng's heart sank. A powerful high-level fiend, a cunning Chu Liyue, and a mysterious blood ferret. He and Rongzhen weren't their opponents at all. Rongzhen finally realized the danger at this point. Her face turned even paler and blood kept seeping out of the corner of her mouth. She forced herself to raise her head and look at Chu Liyue. His arrogant and presumptuous face was now filled with deep fear. However, there was still a trace of resentment in the depths of his eyes. It's you. This magical beast was sent by you." She accused in a trembling voice. "It's you. You've long harbored a grudge against me and wanted to kill me to silence me, haven't you?" Chu Luiwei raised his eyebrows. You're saying, Shui is the devil beast that destroyed your essence core? Why are you pretending to be innocent? Rongzhen was already on the verge of breaking down. Seeing that Chu Luiwei didn't seem to know anything, she was so angry that her lungs exploded, and she screamed hysterically. Back then you purposely sold the hunting ground and then secretly spread the news that there were high-level magical beasts there to lure me over. Then you sent this magical beast to sneak an attack on me, causing me to fall off the cliff. My essence core was destroyed and I was completely crippled. Everything you did was because I humiliated you at the palace banquet back then. You evil woman. The truth is right here. Do you still want to deny it? Chu Luiwei pondered over Rongzhen's words and his eyes darkened. Then he looked at Shui, who was beside him in deep thought. Shui lowered its head guiltily and stared at its claws. Chu Luiwei asked lightly, Shui, why are you here? Shui, did you really push her off the cliff back then? Shui didn't move. Chu Luiwei's voice rose slightly. Shui immediately looked at her. It was just following orders. Chu Luiwei stared at it for a while. After confirming that it wasn't lying, she raised her eyebrows in satisfaction. Just admit it. I don't like little fellows who lie to me. Shui hurriedly nodded. Dumpling, who was at the side, suddenly froze. She secretly glanced at Chu Luiwei to confirm that she wasn't talking about her. Then she shifted her gaze away. Chu Luiwei's lips suddenly curled up into a smile. Well done. Shui instantly heaved a sigh of relief. A huge smile appeared on its face and its white teeth were exposed. Rongzhen was about to die from anger. She really didn't know what Chu Luiwei was doing now. She was clearly the mastermind behind all of this, yet she was still acting here. Chu Luiwei looked at Rongzhen. She crossed her arms with one hand and played with the dagger that had already flown back with the other. She lazily said, Rongzhen, whether you believe it or not, I didn't destroy your pearl of essence. However, I can't be bothered to explain so much to you now. Anyway, in your eyes, I'm already an evil woman. Whatever I do, even if it's killing you, is perfectly normal, right? Rongzhen shuddered in fear. Chu Luiwei. I'm the fourth princess of country Yaochen. You dare to kill me. Why wouldn't I dare? Chu Luiwei interrupted her and surveyed the surroundings. This place is deserted. It's the best place to kill someone. Besides, you guys secretly brought me out. Other than you guys, no one else knows that I'm with you now. Even if they investigate in the future, they won't be able to trace it back to me. Rongzhen's lips trembled violently, but she couldn't say anything. This was because she knew very well that Chu Luiwei wasn't wrong at all. She looked at Chu Luiwei. That woman was standing there, her posture relaxed and languid, her face full of smiles. However, the cold glint in her eyes was even colder than the glint of the dagger she was playing with. Endless fear surged in Rongzhen's heart. At this moment she finally realized that she was a fish on someone's chopping block. Chu Luiwei could really kill her here. Besides, she could definitely do it. Chu Luiwei. Please don't kill me. I was blind in the past and offended you. Please don't hold it against me, okay? I can apologize to you. If you want, you can also use a rope to strangle me. I'll bark like a dog for you, okay? Please. Rongzhen was scared out of her wits. In order to survive, she was willing to give up everything. Chu Luiwei looked at her with interest. He originally thought that Rongzhen was a spoiled, arrogant, and domineering princess, but now it seemed that she was more flexible than he imagined. However, that was all there was to it. Chu Luiwei smiled. Rongzhen, you don't have to waste your breath. At this moment, if you were me, would you spare my life? Rongzhen's voice stopped abruptly. Of course not. There was such a huge conflict between her and Chu Luiwei. If she had the chance to kill Chu Luiwei, she definitely wouldn't hesitate. Chu Luiwei would definitely do the same. Thinking of this, despair gradually filled her eyes. Chu Luiwei raised his chin. Don't worry. Today is a good day for me, so I'll give you a quick death. As she spoke, she pointed the dagger in her hand at Rongzhen's glabella. Wait. I can tell you a secret about Rongzhen. Digression. The remaining chapters might be slower to update, so let's read them together tonight. Mobile users, please browse and read them. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 322. The sharp dagger dangerously flew over Rongzhen's head. It then harshly stabbed into the ground beside her. A strand of hair floated down in front of her eyes. Rongzhen's heart seemed to be tightly clenched by something. If I had been any later, I would have really died here today. Chu Liyue looked at Rongzhen's pale and shaken face for a while before slowly asking, I have nothing to do with Rongzhen anymore. I have nothing to do with Rongjin anymore, and any secrets related to him have nothing to do with me. What makes you think that you can use this secret to exchange for your life? Yes. I definitely can. I promise that you'll definitely be interested in this matter. Rongzhen was afraid that Chu Liyue would regret it, so she spoke very quickly. Chu Liyue raised his brows with interest. Rongzhen's eyes were filled with panic, but she still spoke to Chu Liyue confidently. Really? If you really don't care after I say it, it won't be too late to kill me then. In any case, my life and death is in your hands right now, isn't it? Chu Liyue lifted his chin. Tell me about it. Rongzhen took a deep breath in and forcefully swallowed the sticky blood that surged up her throat. The smell made her want to vomit, but at this point she definitely didn't dare to do anything she shouldn't do in front of Chu Liyue. Do you know that father and country Xing Luo want Situ Xingqian to marry Rongjin? Hearing Situ Xingqian's name, a dim light flashed across Chu Liyue's eyes. There weren't any rumors about this before. How did you know? Seeing that Chu Liyue seemed to be interested in this matter, Rongzhen secretly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart and continued speaking. Because I inadvertently heard about this matter from Imperial Mother. However, she and Rongjin don't know that I know about this. Chu Liyue nodded in understanding. In that case, it wasn't impossible. After all, Rongzhen was the Empress's biological daughter, and she had always been close to Rongjin. Thus, it wasn't strange for her to hear this. A fair lady is a gentleman's mate. It's Rongjin's blessing to be able to marry Situ Xingqian. Chu Liyue said faintly. She said this with sincerity. Even though Situ Xingqian didn't give her a good impression, Situ Xingqian was indeed very outstanding in other aspects. Whether it was appearance or talent, she was one in a million. Even her status was more honorable and stable than Rongjin's. Even though Rongjin was the crown prince the moment he was born, his position was already on the brink of collapse after the recent series of setbacks. Emperor Zhaowen's patience with him is about to run out. The other princes are also very outstanding and can replace him at any time. For example, the third prince, Rongjio. That person had always been Rongjin's formidable opponent, even though he had been living in seclusion and had been very quiet. However, Chu Liyue did not think that a man who had fought on the battlefield in his teens and made outstanding achievements in battle would admit defeat so easily. He was just waiting for the right time. Previously, Rongjin was suddenly placed under house arrest and stripped of many of his rights. Seemed to have something to do with the third prince. On the other hand, Situ Xingqian was the eldest princess and did not need to fight for the throne. However, she had extremely high prestige and status in country Xing Luo, and even those princes couldn't compare to her. The marriage between the two of them was beneficial to Rongjin. Rongjin didn't ask to marry Situ Xingqian. This marriage was initiated by country Xing Luo. Rongzhen emphasized every word. This really shocked Chu Liyue. Why? This is the secret I want to tell you. Rongzhen looked at Chu Liyue nervously. Do you want to hear the secret now? If you want to know, then you have to swear that you won't kill me. You also won't use other means to torture me. Chu Liyue's lips curved up slightly. Are you negotiating with me? Do you have the right? Rongzhen choked and then gritted her teeth. She gritted her teeth and said, I know I don't. But if you don't agree, then you don't have to do anything. I'll end it myself. Chu Liyue looked at her nonchalantly. The dagger is beside you. Rongzhen didn't seem to expect Chu Liyue to give such a straightforward answer, and she couldn't help but be dazed. Why, you don't want to know the reason behind this? There's a huge secret behind this. Chu Liyue nodded honestly. Of course I want to know. But I hate it when others bargain with me, especially someone like you. As she spoke, she glanced at the sky. If you really want to take action, you better hurry. It's almost evening now. I still have to go back and have dinner with my father. Rongzhen's blood was stuck in her throat and her face flushed red. She angrily pulled out the dagger and pressed it against her neck. Chu Liyue, I'm telling you, if you don't listen to this secret, you'll definitely regret it. Chu Liyue acted as if he didn't hear anything. All right. Even though the dagger is sharp, if you cut it in the wrong spot, it'll take a long time for you to bleed to death. The spot you put it in now is a little low. Go up a little. Rongzhen was so angry that her vision turned black. She was originally injured and there wasn't a single part of her body that didn't hurt. Now that she heard Chu Liuyue's words, she was about to break down completely. She clenched her teeth and her hands trembled. The scene of her confronting her mother a few days ago suddenly surfaced in her mind. Those ear-piercing words were like a sharp knife that harshly pierced her heart. Despair flashed across Rongzhen's eyes. In the past she was very talented and was doted on. However, she became a good-for-nothing overnight and she lost everything. But just because she couldn't do anything for Rongzhen, she became a good-for-nothing in her mother's eyes. She became a thorn in her mother's side. Even if she were to die here today, no one would care. Thinking of this, she slowly closed her eyes as a tear rolled down her cheek. Then she waved her wrist. Poof! Just as the dagger was about to cut her artery, a stone suddenly flew out of Chu Liuyue's hand and hit Rongzhen's wrist. Her hand suddenly turned numb, and the dagger deviated from its original direction and fell to the ground. There was a cut on Rongzhen's neck, but luckily, it was very shallow and wouldn't harm her life. She looked at Chu Liyue dejectedly and hopelessly. What exactly do you want to do? Chu Liyue looked at her with interest. One had to admit that even though Rongzhen did many evil things and was arrogant and despotic, she was much more courageous than Rongzhen. If Rongzhen was the one facing such a situation, he wouldn't even have the courage to hold a dagger. From this aspect, Rongzhen was still more outstanding than Rongzhen. You can tell me the secret now. Rongzhen was dazed and her eyes were filled with suspicion. Really? Why, you're sure you won't kill me? Chu Liyue nodded. Of course. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 323. After Chu Liyue finished speaking, he glanced at Shui beside him. Shui understood and immediately dashed out. His body was huge and muscular, but its speed was extremely fast, almost like a bolt of silver lightning. The next moment, it rushed in front of Elder Meng. The moment Elder Meng saw it move, he already realized the danger. He moved his feet and turned to run. But after a few steps, a white figure flashed in front of him, and the white lion appeared in front of him, blocking his path. Force gathered in Elder Meng's palm and he hurriedly threw a punch. Longyong punch. Mockery flashed across Shui's icy blue eyes. Then it raised its claws. Swish. Elder Meng's punch was harshly torn apart. Even his hands were bleeding profusely. Elder Meng was pushed back by this strong force and almost fell to the ground. When he finally stabilized himself, he saw the white lion slowly approaching him. Without a second thought, he turned around and fled. Roar. A roar suddenly sounded in the forest. Elder Meng took half a step forward and his body suddenly froze. Then viscous blood flowed out of his ears. Bang. He suddenly fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Chu Liyue walked over, not surprised at all. The suppression of a high-level fiend was enough to directly shatter a Stage 5 warrior's organs. She used a tree branch to remove the black cloth on Elder Meng's face, and an old and unfamiliar face appeared in front of her. Chu Liyue raised his brows and looked at Rongzhen. Rongzhen forced herself to calm down and slowly said, "This is Elder Meng. This is Elder Si Meng. He has been secretly protecting me all these years." Someone from the Si family? Yes, the Si family doesn't seem to have such an elder, right? He faked his death 20 years ago, but in reality he has been serving mother all these years. Chu Liyue instantly recalled that the current empress, Si Huijing, was the Si family head's younger sister. It seems like the empress and the entire Si family have reservations about His Majesty. No, the rest of the Si family doesn't know about this. Even though Rongzhen hated the empress, she didn't want to drag the Si family into this. Chu Liyue, 4 villages. You have Si Meng by your side, but what about Rongzhen and Rongqi? Rongzhen shook her head. The imperial palace is heavily guarded, and imperial mother doesn't dare to go too far. In the past, Elder Si Meng mostly protected Rongzhen, but ever since I got injured he started following me. Now that Si Meng was dead, the last bit of hope in her heart was completely shattered. As Chu Liyue listened, he took out a jade bottle from his Qingkuan bag and poured something onto Si Meng's body. Rongzhen had already guessed what it was, but she cowered and didn't dare to speak. Sure enough, after a short while, Meng's body completely disappeared. Not a single trace was left behind. Rongzhen widened her eyes at this scene and her heart raced. After Chu Liyue settled this problem, he looked at Rongzhen again. Rongzhen seemed to be shocked by her actions and suddenly took a step back. Chu Liyue looked down at her with a smile on her lips. Okay, now you can start telling me that secret. After carefully instructing Rongjin, the Empress returned to the palace. Too many things had happened today and she was completely exhausted. The palace servants had all heard about what happened at Tianlu Academy and knew that the Empress wasn't in a good mood at this time. Hence they were especially careful. The Empress returned to her room and sat down in front of the dressing table. A face was reflected in the bronze mirror. It was dignified and beautiful, but it was also old and tired. She reached out and slowly brushed past the wrinkles at the corner of her eyes. Even if she took good care of it, it couldn't withstand the corrosion of time. After all, it was different from when she was young. Even she wasn't willing to look at this face, let alone His Majesty. Besides, even if she went back to more than 10 years ago, her face wasn't the one that His Majesty loved the most. Thinking of this, a strong sense of frustration surged in her heart. Bang! She knocked the jewelry box onto the floor. The palace servants serving her at the side immediately knelt down. Your Majesty, please calm down. The Empress wanted to get angry and kill everyone here. But in the end she held herself back. None of this was important. As long as Rongjin could stabilize his position as the crown prince, there was still hope for everything. She would definitely be the final winner. Thinking of this, she softened her tone. You don't have to be nervous. This consort was just too tired and made a mistake. Put everything away. Yes. The palace servants hurriedly picked up the scattered jewelry one by one and put them back into the box. The Empress asked faintly, "How was the fourth princess today?" The palace servant hurriedly said, "Replying to your highness, the fourth princess is still in the palace today and is unwilling to come out. The food sentence seems to be useless too." The Empress paused and frowned. After she hit Rongzhen a few days ago, Rongzhen refused to come out. Even though she regretted hitting Rongzhen, she also felt that Rongzhen's temper should change. In this kind of situation, how could she still be arrogant and unbridled? Instead of thinking about how to share Rongjin's and my worries, she only cares about herself. Does she think that she's still the fourth princess that everyone doted on? She originally wanted to give her the cold shoulder for a few days so that she would learn to behave. However, it seemed like it was impossible now. She stood up and said, "I'll go and see her." When the Empress walked to Rongzhen's bedroom, it was already evening. When the palace servants saw the Empress, they were all shocked. "Greetings, Your Highness." The Empress looked around and indeed didn't see Rongzhen. "Where's the fourth princess?" Replying to Your Highness, the fourth princess is still in the room. The Empress was even more displeased. "I'm already here. Rongzhen must have heard me, but she still doesn't come out. She's really spoiled." She restrained her expression and walked straight to the door that was tightly shut. "Jinjin, mother is here." The room was silent and there was no response. The Empress raised her voice. "Jinjin?" Still no one spoke. The Empress lost her patience and ordered the palace servants to open the door forcefully. Then she stepped into it. "Rongzhen, you've really gone overboard recently. The Empress's remaining words disappeared in her throat. This was because there was no one in the room. She looked around. Jinjin. Dead silence. This time the Empress finally panicked. She quickly searched the room and finally confirmed that Rongzhen wasn't here. She looked at the palace servants behind her in shock and anger. Where did the fourth princess go? The palace servants were also shocked as they knelt down together. "Your Highness, you're wise. The fourth princess has been in her room for the past few days and hasn't come out. Then where is she now?" So many people said that Rongzhen didn't go out, so she definitely didn't go out for a simple walk. "Well, you really don't know." The Empress casually grabbed the teacup beside her and harshly threw it at the palace servants. "Hurry and find her for me. If you can't find the fourth princess, you'll all have to hand over your heads." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 324. Yes. The palace servants were also scared out of their wits and hurriedly responded. Just as they were about to leave, the Empress said sternly, "Also, you can't let others know about this. If it reaches His Majesty's ears, be careful of your lives." Yes. The palace servants hurriedly left. The Empress's face was terrifyingly dark as she stood rooted to the ground for a while. Where could Rongzhen go? Her pearl of essence was shattered and she didn't have any cultivation left. With her own strength, it was impossible for her to avoid so many people and leave silently. Unless, the Empress suddenly thought of something and her heart sank. Did Elder Meng leave with Rongzhen? She hurriedly walked back into the house and left the palace servants outside. After confirming that there was no one around, she took out something from her arms. It was a thumb-sized jade seal. She usually used this to contact Elder Meng. She gently twisted the seal. A soft sound was heard. She looked at the bottom of the seal. But to her disappointment, there was no reaction. The Empress frowned. Even if Elder Meng left with Rongzhen, he should have received this news. In the past he would respond quickly, but now, she paused for a while and tried again. Still there was no reaction. The Empress became increasingly anxious. Elder Meng had been with her for many years, but this had never happened before. This made her feel very uneasy. She couldn't help but size up the room again. Everything was normal except that there was one person missing. The Empress felt her head hurt and rubbed her glabella. Where exactly could Rongzhen have gone? There were enough things today, but Rongzhen just had to add to the chaos at this time. If His Majesty finds out, he will blame me even more for not doing my duty as a mother. Our current situation is already difficult enough. What is wrong with Rongzhen? When I find her, I will teach her a lesson no matter what. Bam. All of a sudden, the seal in her hand exploded. The Empress was shocked and directly threw it out. The seal that was already broken rolled on the floor and completely disintegrated. Her Majesty? What's wrong? The palace servants outside hurriedly asked when they heard the sound. The Empress instinctively shouted, "Nothing. Nobody is allowed to come in." As she spoke, she hurriedly walked over and picked up the broken pieces of the seal. She opened her eyes wide and looked at the thing in her hand in disbelief. It took her a long time to recover. This is, Old Meng is dead. Her body trembled uncontrollably with shock and fear. Elder Meng was actually dead. He was a rank 5 warrior. All these years he had done many things for her and had never made a single mistake. How could he suddenly die now? The Empress was suddenly stunned. Wait a minute. If it was really Elder Meng who took Xianxia out and now that he was dead, wouldn't Xianxia? Thinking of this, she quickly got up. If Xianxia was really in danger, she had to send someone to save her as soon as possible. But halfway there she stopped. Telling His Majesty about this was the fastest and most effective way. After all, His Majesty could mobilize too many people. If she blindly sent people to search, who knew when there would be news? But how was she going to explain how Rongzhen left so quietly? Once His Majesty conducts a thorough investigation, he will definitely find Elder Meng. Even if he's already dead. By then, not to mention Rongzhen, she might not even be able to sit on her throne as the Empress. She hesitated for a moment and fell into a dilemma. After hesitating for a long time, she finally decided to hide this matter first. If she could find Rongzhen as soon as possible, everyone would be happy. But in a life and death situation, Rongzhen would definitely think of ways to protect herself. After all, she still had Silverfly with her. Now the mother and son pair couldn't create any more trouble. The Chu family. Chu Ning followed the wooden vines to the Chu residence. Standing in front of the door and looking at the very familiar door, he had a lot of thoughts and complicated feelings. He used to be proud of the Chu family and tried his best to give up everything for the Chu family. But in the end, the Chu family only left him with endless painful memories. If it weren't for the family head, he definitely wouldn't step through this door again. The guard standing at the door saw him from afar and immediately bowed respectfully. "Welcome back, eldest young master." They were very attentive and had flattering smiles on their faces. Even when Chu Ning was at his peak, he had never been treated so warmly. However, the smiles on their faces were glaring and even disgusting to Chu Ning. He could still clearly remember how these people had treated him and Yu a few months ago. How long had it been and things had become like this? Every dog has its day. He ignored those people and walked straight through the door. Passing through the courtyard, he walked toward the hall. But before he reached the place, he saw that the Chu family had already gathered outside the hall. Seeing his figure appear, someone immediately went up to welcome him. "Big brother. You're finally back." Looking at the smiling man in front of him, Chu Ning knitted his brows. Chu Ji. Chu Ji came from a branch of the Chu family and had always been at odds with him. In the past, when he was in the limelight, Chu Ji was jealous and always felt that he had stolen his reputation and glory. Later on, when he fell from grace, Chu Ji secretly made things difficult for him. Chu Ning's lips curled up into a cold smile. "Chu Ji, it's been a long time since I called you big brother. Seems you haven't called me that in 10 years, right?" A trace of awkwardness flashed across Chu Ji's face, but he quickly squeezed out an eager smile and pulled Chu Ning's arm with one hand. "Haha. Big brother, you still like to joke as before. Please come in. Everyone has been waiting for you for a long time." Chu Ning easily avoided his hand and looked at the crowd in front of him. He quickly looked around and sneered in his heart. Heh. Not only Chu Ji but all the important figures of the Chu family were here. Who else could it be but the great elder Chu Xiao standing in the middle? However, at this moment, compared to the eager and enthusiastic expressions of the others, his expression was still not good. "We're all family. Why are you standing here? Why aren't you coming in to talk?" Chu Xiao said firmly. Chu Ning smiled. To be able to say such words of compromise was probably the biggest concession Chu Xiao could make. However, he did not return to the Chu family today to continue looking at Chu Xiao's face. "Great Elder Chu, you seem to have forgotten something. And I have already completely severed ties with the Chu family. We really can't be considered a family, right?" Chu Xiao's expression turned cold. "How dare you?" Chu Ning placed one hand behind his back and said indifferently. "Great Elder Chu, if you have anything to say, just say it directly. However, this reprimand, forget it." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 325. Just as Chu Xiao was about to flare up, the person beside him hurriedly whispered, "First Elder. It wasn't easy for us to invite Chu Ning back. Don't fall out because of an argument. Business is more important. Business is more important." Chu Xiao could only suppress the anger in his heart. In any case, the invitation had already been written. It was not a big deal for him to lower his stance now. This was not only for the Chu family but also for himself. Thinking of this, he adjusted his expression and restrained the anger on his face. "You can't say that here. So many people are standing here. What do you think it looks like? Come in first." With that, he turned around and returned to the hall. A small portion of the others followed him in, while the majority of them were still looking at Chu Ning as if waiting for him to move. Chu Ji didn't dare to provoke him again. He only said eagerly from the side, "Big brother, please go first. You're the big brother, so you should naturally go first." Chu Ning glanced at him. There was no embarrassment on Chu Ji's face. Instead, it was filled with excitement and fawning. Seeing that Chu Ning was sizing him up, he quickly said, "Big brother, you haven't been back for a while. You might not be used to it, but don't worry, just tell me if you have any instructions. I'll definitely do it for you." Chu Ning could see the sincerity in his words. Chu Ji really did not hold a grudge over what happened just now. Instead, he was wholeheartedly trying to please him. How ironic. Chu Ning shook his head and walked towards the hall. Seeing him walk in, the others followed him in. Chu Ning was arranged to be the first on the left. Other than the seat of honor where Chu Xiao usually sat, this was the most honorable seat. It was even ranked before the other elders of the Chu family. However, Chu Ning could not be bothered with this and sat down. "Since everyone is already in, First Elder, can you speak frankly?" He did not want to waste time here. The longer he stayed with these people, the more unbearable he felt. Therefore, he planned to quickly resolve the matter and return. Chu Xiao was dissatisfied with Chu Ning's attitude, but he knew that now was not the time to be calculative. Hence, he said, according to what the patriarch said back then, he should be coming out of seclusion soon. If the patriarch knew about this, he would definitely be very disappointed. "So, I've called you here today to discuss what to do about this matter." Chu Ning chuckled, but there was no mirth in her eyes. What else can we do? Since it had already happened, could it be that they were going to pretend that it never happened? When the patriarch comes out of seclusion, I will personally explain to him. Everyone was stunned and looked at each other. They seemed to have never expected that Chuning would actually say this. Chuji couldn't help but say, "Big brother, don't you always respect the patriarch the most? Severing your relationship with the Chu clan is equivalent to severing your relationship with the clan head. If the clan head knows about it, he will definitely be very upset." Chuning said calmly. "I know. Whether it was in the past or now, my respect for the patriarch has always been the same. But now that things have come to this, no one can turn back. So no matter how the patriarch views me, I will accept it." "Are you serious?" Even Chu Xiao could not help but ask. Clearly he was extremely shocked by Chuning's words. Everyone in the Chu family knew that Chuning was a very sentimental person. "I thought that bringing up the family head would make him regret his decision back then, but now it seems that it's a little unexpected." Chuning nodded. "Of course. Every word I said was carefully thought out." The hall fell into an awkward silence. He had already said this, so how could the others say anything? After a long while, Chu Xiao frowned and said, "Chuning, since you've already said so, then there's no need for us to be so polite. You should know why I called you back today." Chuning's face was sincere. "I'm sorry, I really don't know. Is it to apologize to you, and me, to ease the relationship with us father and daughter, or to beg us to come back? If you don't say it, how can I guess?" Everyone's expression became awkward again. Chu Xiao suppressed his anger. "Chuning, don't go overboard." "I really don't know, that's why I asked. Is this considered going overboard?" Chuning sneered and swept his gaze across everyone. "You can't be asking me to come back to chat, right? Enough." Chu Xiao felt that these words were very ear-piercing. He finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He stood up angrily and stared at Chuning. "Don't you just want us to admit that we want you to come back?" "Not beg," Chuning corrected sincerely. Chu Xiao's face kept changing between green and white. "Chuning, you're right. Now the entire Chu family hopes that you and Lu can come back and become a member of the Chu family again." The third elder, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke and looked at Chuning kindly. "The Chu family has wronged you and your father, so you can choose whatever you want. If you agree to come back, everyone in the Chu family will be grateful. If you don't, then what happened today never happened." The third elder's words made the Chu family members even more embarrassed. But they had to endure it. After all, someone had to say this. Moreover, they were indeed the ones who were begging. Chuning's expression softened a little, and he nodded slightly at the third elder. "Thank you for pointing it out, third elder. My answer is I don't agree." This answer was also within everyone's expectations, but they had already prepared a lot of persuasive words. "Chuning, think about it carefully again. After all, the Chu family is the place where you were born and raised. Don't you have any attachment at all?" "Yes. Big brother. If you're still angry about what happened to Chu Yan's family, then it's not worth it. You probably don't know that Lu Yao instigated the Gu family's madam to cause trouble at Tianlu Academy and was taught a lesson by the Gu family's master. And Chu Yan is still lying in bed and can't get up. That couple has caused so much trouble for the Chu family. Now that the Chu family has declined and caused so much trouble, it's really in danger. Chuning, are you really going to watch from the sidelines? When the master comes out of seclusion, how are we going to explain to him? If you're still holding a grudge about what happened in the past, then we'll let you take revenge. How about that?" "All right, and Lu, we've already locked up all the servants who bullied her in the past. As long as you come back, you can do whatever you want with them." All kinds of voices mixed together, making Chuning feel extremely annoyed. He suddenly sneered. "Is that so? If I remember correctly, many of you here have done the same thing, right? If you really want to settle the score, then you can't escape, right?" The hall instantly quieted down. Chuning looked at Chu Xiao and said coldly, "For the first one, why don't we start with First Elder Chu? Digression. Tomorrow at noon, please browse and read for mobile users. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 326. Chu Xiao frowned. "Chuning, do you know what you're saying?" Chuning leaned back in his chair with a relaxed expression and a cold gaze. "Of course. If you don't accept, then let's end the discussion here." As he spoke, he was about to stand up. Chu Xiao was about to shout angrily, but the person beside him spoke first. "That Chuning, we know that the Chu family wronged you and your daughter first. It's understandable for you to make this request. However, so much time has passed. Are you going to investigate everything one by one? I remember each and every one of them clearly. I won't malign anyone. Chuning glanced at the person who spoke. Why don't we start with you? That person was speechless. The entire hall fell into dead silence again. Who knew what Chuning would think of to punish and take revenge on them? Only a fool would stand out at this time. However, it was difficult for them to give up just like that. Chuning had been promoted to the commander of the Imperial Guards and held great power in his hands. However, this was not the most important thing. The key to the problem was still Chu Luiyue. It would be fine if she was just an ordinary cultivation genius, but she was clearly more outstanding than most people. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to take first place twice in the Qin Jiao competition. Moreover, she was extremely talented as a celestial physician. From the moment she could refine pills, she was already considered a true celestial physician. One had to know that no one in the Chu family had achieved this in so many years. What made them even more tempted was that Chu Luiyue had a Daijinjuan meridian and was chosen by Mu Qinghe to cultivate in the Tianling dynasty in the future. What an honor this was! If Chu Luiyue was still a member of the Chu family, then the entire Chu family's status would instantly rise. By then, not only would they be able to maintain their position as one of the 4 major families, they might even be able to replace the C family as the number 1 family. How could they give up such a huge temptation in front of them? Big brother, for the sake of the master, why don't we compromise? Chu Ji cautiously said. Chuning asked. What do you mean? Chu Ji glanced at Chu Xiao and smiled awkwardly. About that. If we were to count the things that happened in the past one by one, it would be quite troublesome. Why don't we formally apologize to you and Lu Yu and compensate you according to your suggestions? In order to show our sincerity, this matter should start with the great elder. How about it? Chu Xiao raised his eyebrows. Chu Ji, do you want this old man to lower his head and apologize first? Cough cough, Grand Elder, you don't have to be so blunt, except for the patriarch. Right now you are the most respected person in the Chu clan. Isn't it the most convincing to start with you? Even if it's for the Chu family. Chu Ji lowered his voice when he said the last sentence, but everyone in the hall heard it clearly. Everyone's hesitant and worried expressions quickly dissipated. First Elder, what Chu Ji said makes sense. You have indeed given Chu Ning and his daughter a lot of grievances in the past. It is only right for you to apologize. Yes. You've already written the invitation. Didn't you ask Chu Ning to come back today to discuss a solution? It's best to turn big problems into small ones and small ones into nothing. First Elder, didn't you say that we are all family? Since we are family, it's fine to lower our heads. Chu Xiao was so angry that his face turned green. These people who were usually respectful to him actually sold him out in the blink of an eye in order to establish a relationship with Chu Luiyue. After a long stalemate, Chu Xiao finally said coldly. All right. In that case, this old man will apologize to you. Chu Ning smiled faintly. First Elder, are you apologizing or lecturing people? Chu Xiao choked. The people beside him hurriedly approached and said, First Elder, think about Vice Admiral Mu. The other families didn't have the chance to establish a relationship with him. And the fact that the blood of the Chu family flowed in Chu Luiyue's body was indisputable. As long as they were willing to agree to come back, these small matters wouldn't be a problem at all. Chu Xiao took a deep breath. In the past, this old man did some terrible things and hurt you and your father. Now I apologize to you. I'm sorry. Chu Xiao's body trembled as he gritted his teeth. It took him a lot of effort to say these words. He was used to being high and mighty in the Chu family. Now that he had to lower his head and apologize to Chu Ning, who he had always disliked, he felt extremely disgusted and broke down in his heart. He would settle this score in the future. The others didn't care about Chu Xiao's emotions at all. They all looked at Chu Ning expectantly. He had apologized and admitted his mistake. Now Chu Ning should agree to return to the Chu family, right? But under their fervent gazes, Chu Ning didn't move. He just looked at Chu Xiao quietly as if he was still waiting for something. There's still you. His voice was cold as he said word by word. Everyone looked at each other. Chu Xiao suddenly came back to his senses. You want this old man to apologize to Chu Luiyue again? Chu Ning nodded as if it was a matter of course. Of course. I am me and you is you. Besides, she seems to have suffered more grievances than me all these years. Is it so difficult for you to apologize? Chu Xiao was about to go crazy. When did Chu Ning become so difficult to deal with? Then why didn't you say so just now? Chu Ning snorted. His gaze was mocking, but he suddenly stood up. So difficult for you to even apologize. I think the so-called compensation is even more illusory. Since you don't have any sincerity, I think there's no need to continue this conversation. He walked out of the hall. When the patriarch comes out of seclusion, I will naturally explain everything that you, and I did. I believe he will understand. As for you, good luck. Wait. Seeing that Chu Ning was really about to leave, Chu Xiao finally threw caution to the wind. As long as Chu Luiyue agrees to return to the Chu family, then this old man will personally apologize to her until she is satisfied. How about it? Chu Ning stood still and a mocking smile appeared on his face. He turned around and looked at Chu Xiao. There's no need. Chu Xiao was stunned. What? Chu Ning laughed softly, but his voice was as cold as ice, chilling to the bottom of one's heart. The Chu family gave birth to me and raised me. If I say that I don't have the slightest bit of nostalgia for the Chu family, it would definitely be a lie. So, whether it's for the sake of the Chu family's nurturing of me in the past, or for the sake of the patriarch who is about to come out of seclusion, I can let bygones be bygones and let bygones be bygones. But you can't. I remember clearly what you did to you and I will never forget it in this lifetime. Even if all of you kneel on the ground and kowtow to apologize, even if you is really willing to forgive you, I can't do it. Digression, slowly updating. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 327. With Shue's help, Chu Luiyue rushed home as fast as she could. Fortunately, she arrived before Chu Ning. After about 15 minutes, Chu Ning finally returned. Father, how did it go? Chu Luiyue asked. Chu Ning smiled. It's all settled. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. They invited you back to discuss letting us go back, right? I rejected them. Chu Ning's answer was very straightforward. And I told them that we will never go back. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Then the family head, I went there today because I wanted to make things clear to them. This way if the family head asks, I can give him an explanation. However, from the beginning to the end, I have no intention of forgiving them. Chu Ning looked at Chu Luiyue and sighed softly. Because you are the person I want to protect the most in this world. Chu Luiyue's heart warmed up. She knew how much Chu Ning had compromised for her, so she felt especially grateful and warm. Thank you, father. The next day, Chu Luiyue returned to the academy. The fire caused Juyo Tower to completely disappear. The elders and teachers in the academy were busy dealing with the remaining matters, so most of the students had more free time. When Chu Luiyue went to look for Mu Hongyu, she happened to see Liao Zhongshu. Lu Yu. Mu Hongyu was very excited when she saw Chu Luiyue. Thank you. I have already written a letter to father. They will send mother here soon. Chu Luiyue was also very happy. That's good. It's just that the journey is bumpy, so mother will have to suffer. Don't worry. Although Imperial concubine mother's health is not suitable for her to move too much recently, when Imperial father heard that you asked for Deputy General Mu's help, he immediately found several powerful elders to think of a way to safely send Imperial concubine mother here. I really don't know how to thank you. Originally, when Mu Hongyu asked Chu Luiyue for help, she didn't have much hope. After all, they were envoys from the Tianling dynasty, and they had distinguished statuses. Even Emperor Zhaoan might not be able to invite them, let alone Chu Luiyue. Who would have thought that Chu Luiyue would be the only one chosen, and he even managed to convince Vice Admiral Mu to help. I didn't think that I would have to trouble Vice Admiral Mu to invite someone from the Tianling dynasty over. I really owe you a big favor for this. Chu Luiyue's lips curved up. It's fine. I also want to see what the celestial physician of the Tianling dynasty is like. After she died, other than Mu Qinghe, what happened to the others? Mu Hongyu's eyes lit up. Yeah. Speaking of celestial physician Lu Yu, you can actually produce pills now. We didn't know about this before. You hit it too well. Now that Chu Luiyue can produce pills, he can be considered a real celestial physician. In the entire country Yaochen, there are very few people with such an identity. Besides, Chu Liwei is still so young. I knew that you were definitely more capable than we thought, but I didn't expect. Mu Hongyu lightly snorted and glanced at Liao Zhongshu, who was beside her. The red blood goo in your body was cured by Lu Yu. You must have known about this long ago. Liao Zhongshu smiled helplessly and shook his head. I really didn't know. Unfortunately, the others didn't believe him. Previously, he pretended that the poison was still in his system and was bedridden, so he didn't attend the Qingjiao competition. When he heard that Chu Liwei actually produced pills and took the first place in the Celestial Physician competition, he was shocked for a long time. Only then did he realize that Chu Liwei was the person who saved his life. Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose, but she couldn't be bothered to argue with him. She was more interested in something else. Lu Yu, when will you go to the Tianling dynasty with Vice Admiral Mu? Chu Liwei shook his head. It's not confirmed yet. He seems to be staying here for a while and he wants to continue observing me. If I can't pass, I still can't go. Ah, so troublesome? Mu Hongyu looked disappointed. I thought you guys would go directly. Chu Liwei laughed. I'm not in a hurry, so why are you in a hurry? I'm not in a hurry, but it's the Tianling dynasty we're talking about. Mu Hongyu held her cheeks with both hands, her eyes full of yearning. Who doesn't want to go to that kind of place? Lu Yu, don't you think everyone there is a genius? Everything there must be much better than here. Not necessarily, Chu Liwei said calmly. Mu Hongyu was stunned. How do you know? Chu Liwei paused and realized that he had said something wrong. Her eyes flickered and she smiled. I guessed. If everything is good, then why did Vice Admiral Mu spend so much effort to come here? Now that you mention it, it does make sense. Mu Hongyu's eyes turned and she suddenly thought of something. Right. You won first place in the Qingjiao competition and chose to go to Taiyan Academy's library to read for a month. However, Vice Admiral Mu has already chosen you. Do you still want to go? Although this is an extremely rare opportunity, it's not worth mentioning compared to the Tianling dynasty. Unexpectedly, Chu Liwei said without hesitation. I'll go. I'm planning to talk to Vice Admiral Mu about this today. What? Mu Hongyu and Liao Zhongshu were shocked. Are you serious? You're really going? Liu, do you know how many people don't have the opportunity to go to the Tianling dynasty like you? You're actually choosing Taiyan Academy? Mu Hongyu widened her eyes. She felt that Chu Liyue's decision was unbelievable. Liao Zhongshu was about to speak, but he suddenly remembered the red blood goo and swallowed his words. Chu Liyue smiled. I have my own plans. In fact, she did not plan to stay there for a month. As long as there was any movement on Mu Qinghe's side, she could immediately come back. Moreover, although Mu Qinghe did not say it explicitly, based on Chu Liyue's understanding of him, he should be planning to stay here for a long time. Chu Liyue did not think that the reason he was staying was because of her. Therefore, this was also something that she was very curious about. Mu Hongyu wanted to say a few more words, but when she saw Chu Liyue's determined expression, she gave up. All right. When are you going? The people from Taiyan Academy seem to have left today. Our academy's elders were Rong and Elder Wei Qing from Nanfeng Academy also went. Chu Liyue understood. This was obviously to investigate Heng Jingchua and the others. She thought for a moment. It won't be too late for me to go after your mother arrives. Mu Hongyu was stunned and her eyes reddened. Lu Yu, thank you so much. It's nothing. Chu Liyue's lips curled up slightly. Mu Hongyu suddenly said, Oh, right. After you returned home yesterday, Chu Xianmin looked for you. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 328. This surprised Chu Liyue. She's looking for me? Yes. I don't know what she wants to do. I accidentally passed by your place yesterday and saw her loitering at your door. I went up to ask her what she was doing, but she didn't want to say anything and left in a hurry. Mu Hongyu shrugged and pouted. Maybe she wants to do something to harm you when you're not around. Chu Liyue squinted her eyes and tapped her fingers on the table. It's indeed strange for Chu Xianmin to take the initiative to look for me. However, if it's because of the person behind red blood goo, it's hard to say. After all, during the Qingjiao competition she had clearly felt an inexplicable threatening aura. I have a feeling that the other party is targeting me. Then on Zhou Xianmin's side, did Zhou Xianmin come to the academy today? She asked. I don't know. He probably came. Are you going to look for her? Mu Hongyu was a little worried. Zhou Xianmin was cunning and vengeful. Nothing good would come of her taking the initiative to look for Zhou Xianmin. Besides, the crown prince even asked Chu Luiyue to be his wife in front of everyone. This was equivalent to slapping Zhou Xianmin in the face. I'm afraid she hates Chu Luiyue to death now. However, after thinking about it, Mu Hongyu felt that her worries were unnecessary. How can Zhou Xianmin be Chu Luiyue's match? Go then. I'll go and confirm mother's arrangements after she comes here. Chu Luiyue nodded and got ready to leave. Liao Zhongshu also suddenly stood up. I'm also leaving. Do you still not know where Zhou Xianmin lives? Why don't I bring you there? The two of them looked at each other. Chu Luiyue nodded. The two of them walked towards Zhou Xianmin's residence. Liao Zhongshu sighed. I owe you my life. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Chu Luiyue looked at him. He had just recovered from a serious illness and his face was still somewhat pale. However, the expression in his eyes was incomparably sincere. Perhaps I can't help you with anything now, but as long as you say the word, I will go through fire and water without hesitation. Chu Luiyue looked at him for a while and nodded gently. It's a deal. Liao Zhongshu smiled in relief. The two of them continued to walk forward for a while. Liao Zhongshu stood still and pointed at a certain place ahead. That's where Zhou Xianmin lives. Zhou Xianmin did not live with others because of her excellent results when she entered the school. I'll wait for you here. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but think that Liao Zhongshu was indeed a smart person. He knew what he should do and what he shouldn't do. The smile on her face deepened as she lifted her foot and walked towards that direction. Just as he reached the door was opened from the inside. Zhou Xianmin was about to leave when she looked up and saw Chu Luiyue. He was shocked. What are you doing here? Chu Luiyue sized Zhou Xianmin up. It had only been one night, but Zhou Xianmin looked a lot more haggard. Even though she used a veil to cover her face, one could still see the faint dark circles under her eyes. Her tired, bloodshot eyes also showed that she was not in a good state. Were you looking for me yesterday? Chu Luiyue's question made Zhou Xianmin hesitate. No. Chu Luiyue ignored her and walked past her into the room. You only have 15 minutes. Chu Luiyue said lightly. Zhou Xianmin turned around and felt that the pair of black jade-like eyes seemed to have seen through her. She clenched her teeth, closed the door and turned to face Chu Luiyue. Yesterday that person came again. Chu Luiyue raised his brows. When? Zhou Xianmin shook her head. When I sent the crown prince back yesterday and came back to the academy, he had already been here. I didn't see him. He only left one thing behind. As she spoke, she walked to the table at the side and opened a box. Chu Luiyue glanced at it from the corner of his eyes and focused. That's a letter? Zhou Xianmin passed the letter to Chu Luiyue. It was a letter wrapped in a red envelope. There was a strange picture printed on it and there was a line of words in the middle. To Chu Luiyue. The handwriting was strong and smooth. However, Chu Luiyue felt a strong murderous intent from it. She did not take the letter. Instead, she looked up at Zhou Xianmin. Zhou Xianmin immediately said, I promise that I didn't say anything about you. I don't know why he wrote you a letter. I really don't know. She only knew that the other party purposely asked her to pass the letter. It was obvious that he already knew everything that happened here. This was also a warning to her. Ever since she received the letter yesterday, Zhou Xianmin had been feeling uneasy and worried. She originally thought that the other party would kill her directly. However, other than the letter, everything else was normal. This made her even more fearful. She did not know when the punishment would befall her. After she saw the letter, she hesitated for a long time before deciding to look for Chu Luiyue. However, Chu Luiyue was not around. She did not sleep the entire night after she came back. She kept thinking about this matter and hesitating about what she should do. When she faced Chu Luiyue's question, she subconsciously denied it because she had already decided to hide the letter. Who knew if this was a test from the other party? However, Chu Luiyue was right in front of her. She was terrified and decided to give the letter to her in the end. Chu Luiyue took the letter. Zhou Xianmin heaved a sigh of relief for some reason. However, she then saw Chu Luiyue stand up to leave. He was shocked. Why, you're not going to open it here? Aren't you afraid that I'm lying to you? Chu Luiwei glanced at her nonchalantly. She could not be bothered to say that there was half a Xian formation drawn on the letter. Chapter 329. Si Family. Study Room. Si looked at the Empress Si Huijing in shock. You said that Elder Meng is dead and Rongzhen is missing? When did this happen? The Empress knitted her brows tightly. Yesterday. Then why did you only tell me now? When I found out about this, it was already evening. How could I come out then? I even had to beg His Majesty for a long time to come today. The Empress rubbed her temples in frustration. She didn't sleep well last night and she had nightmares. Her head was about to explode today. The Empress had a distinguished status, but she didn't have much freedom. Her every word and action was watched. She told His Majesty that too many things had happened recently and that she was frustrated. Thus she wanted to go back to the Si family to take a look, so she came out legitimately. His Majesty didn't say anything? Asked Si Yi worriedly. The Empress closed her eyes. His Majesty is angry with Rongjin and he can't be bothered with me. He also wants to take this chance to give us a cold shoulder, so he naturally won't say anything. Si Yi sighed and he couldn't hide his anger. I've heard about everything. Rongjin is too rash. He actually did such a thing. He's too confident in his position as the crown prince. Doesn't he know that there are many people in the imperial city who want to catch him red-handed? The Empress couldn't be bothered to mention Rongjin, but he was her most important son after all, so she had to help him. I've already told him off. He promised that he won't do this again. Si Yi sneered and didn't care. If his promise was useful, he wouldn't have done such a thing. I used to think that Rongjin was petty, but it seems like the problem is more serious than I thought. He's brainless. The Empress glared at him unhappily. Big brother, it's fine if other people say it, but why are you saying it too? You're his uncle. Si Yi wanted to say something, but when he looked up and saw the Empress's haggard face, he paused and swallowed his words. Forget it, let's not talk about him. Rongzhen and Elder Meng's matters are more urgent. What exactly happened? Tell me in detail. The Empress's expression turned solemn, and she immediately recounted what had happened yesterday. So we can confirm that Elder Meng is dead and Rongzhen is nowhere to be found? Si Yi asked blankly. The Empress nodded helplessly. In the entire Si family, only eldest brother and I know of Elder Meng's existence. Once His Majesty finds out, the consequences will be unimaginable. Therefore, I didn't dare to make it public and only sent people to search for him in private. We searched for an entire night, but we didn't find any traces of Rongzhen. We didn't even find any useful clues. Si Yi fell into deep thought. Since Senior Meng took her out, they must have left the palace. Have you sent people to search for her favorite places outside the palace? I did, but I still couldn't find him. The Empress sighed. That's why I came here today to ask Big Brother for help. If it doesn't work, we can secretly search the entire imperial capital. Perhaps we can find it. Easy for you to say. Si Yi got up and paced back and forth in frustration with one hand behind his back. Even for the Si family, it's extremely difficult to achieve this. Besides, if we cause too much of a commotion, people will definitely find out. In less than half a day, His Majesty will know what we're doing. Then what can we do? The Empress was also a little anxious. Elder Meng is already dead and Rongzhen is alone outside. We don't even know what's going on. Now that her Pearl of Essence is destroyed, anyone can easily take her life. If His Majesty finds out. Eldest brother, don't you know that the palace will immediately detect the death of every prince and princess? If something happens to Rongzhen, His Majesty will definitely send people to investigate. If that happens, Elder Meng will definitely be implicated. Then it will be the Si family and me. Rongzhen's current situation is already bad enough. If this is exposed, it will only make things worse. Rongzhen is really too much. She's getting older, but her temper is getting worse by the day. She didn't even think about the consequences of doing this. She'll harm us both. Si Yi glanced at the Empress. Aren't you the one who spoiled Rongzhen's temper? Besides, I see that you're so worried about her life not because you're afraid that something will happen to her, but because you're worried that she'll implicate you in Rongjin, right? If not, what can I do? The Empress was exposed and her embarrassment turned into anger. It wasn't easy for me to fight for the crown prince position. If Rongjin falls, what else do I have to rely on? Rongqi. With his temper he can't take on any big responsibilities. Rongqi's talent and abilities are average, so he can't be of use. Even if he's already a prince, he can't do anything. They're both princes, but look at princely Rongxiu. He hasn't been in the imperial city for so many years, but he can still win His Majesty's favor by staying at princely mansion all day after coming back. It's really infuriating to compare oneself to others. Ziyi waved his hands impatiently. Enough. There's no use saying all this now. We still have to find Rongjin as soon as possible. As long as we hide it from His Majesty, everything will be fine. Oh right, do you know why Rongjin asked Elder Meng to bring her out at this time? How would I know? Halfway through her sentence, a white light flashed across the Empress's heart. No. Rongjin also asked Elder Meng to accompany her out previously. Hey. She went to find Chu Liyue. It was also after that time that Rongjin often looked at the same drawing repeatedly. She had unintentionally seen it before and it seemed to be a simple map. Rongjin had also been talking about finding Chu Liyue a few days ago. Chu Liyue. He screamed in shock. Ziyi was dazed. What? What has this got to do with Chu Liyue? No. Brother, you don't know. Rongjin's disappearance is most likely related to Chu Liyue. The Empress clasped her hands nervously and hated herself for not thinking of this earlier. Must be her. It must be her. Other than Chu Liyue, who else can kill a stage 5 warrior so easily? Perhaps Chu Liyue herself can't do it, but she has too many secrets and countless tricks up her sleeves. Brother. Quick. Get someone to find Chu Liyue. Bring her here. Rongjin must be with her. Ziyi couldn't help but frown upon seeing her like this. Calm down. What do you think the Xi family is? The Xi family isn't the Imperial Guards. How can you casually capture someone? Besides, Chu Liyue isn't an ordinary person now. Who dares to touch her? If something happens to Chu Liyue, needless to say, Chuning Tianlu Academy won't let this matter rest. Also, there's Princely Mansion. And the most important one. Mu Qinghe. The Empress bit her lip. Then ask her directly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 330. If Chu Liyue didn't do it, what will you do? Ziyi asked in a low voice. The Empress was stumped. She couldn't think of any rebuttal and could only mutter softly. It must be her. Must be. Other than her, it can't be anyone else. Ziyi's head hurt. Listen to me. I know you're anxious about Rongjin's disappearance and so am I. But we can't do this. At this time we have to be careful. Otherwise, if we're not careful, we'll lose everything. The Empress gradually calmed down. What should we do? Should we just sit here and wait? Ziyi was silent for a while. I'll send someone to find out about Chu Liyue's situation and see if there's anything strange. The Empress's eyes lit up. Isn't Xi Ting at Tianlu Academy too? I heard that they're classmates, so they must have some interactions. It's best to let him go. Ziyi was a little disgusted. He thought highly of Xi Ting and had been grooming him as his successor. This wasn't something to be proud of. Based on Xi Ting's personality, he would definitely be unwilling. Also, he wasn't willing to let Xi Ting do this either. After the Qingjiao competition, Xi Ting accumulated a lot of experience and has been focusing on cultivation. There's no need for him to go. Besides, it's just to find out some information. It's more suitable to let Xiang go. He's also closer to Chu Liyue. The Empress disagreed. Fiong? Would he be able to do it with his jumpy personality? Big brother, this is a small matter, but it's the most important. Big brother, you might not know Chu Liyue well, but she's very smart. If Xiang goes, she'll probably realize that something is wrong. Xi Ting is mature and cautious. It's better to let him go. Ziyi's face darkened and he didn't say anything. The Empress carefully glanced at him, leaned closer and pleaded in a soft voice. Brother Yi, please forgive me. She pleaded. Big brother, I know you dote on Xi Ting the most and I don't want to trouble him because of this. But, there's no other way, right? If you're really unwilling, then I'll find her myself. I've troubled Big brother a lot all these years. I just hope that if anything happens in the future, You and the Xi family won't be implicated. As she spoke, 2 streams of tears fell from her face. She was his sister after all, so Xi's heart ached for her. Seeing her in such a difficult position, he also felt bad. Then, big brother, I'll take my leave first. As the Empress spoke, she wiped the tears off her face and got up to leave. Xi shook his head helplessly. Let Xi Ting go. The Empress looked at him with surprise and gratitude, tears welling up in her eyes again. Thank you, big brother. Xi sighed and patted her shoulder. It hasn't been easy for you in the palace all these years. You've helped the Xi family a lot. We are bound together for good or ill. This small matter was nothing. You've been out for long enough today. You should return to the palace as soon as possible. I'll let you know as soon as I have any news. The Empress thanked him a few more times before leaving. Prince Li's mansion. Xiao reclined on the bed with his eyes closed. He stretched out an arm that was riddled with scars. Some of them were so deep that bone could be seen. It was badly mangled and looked extremely terrifying. Umo half knelt by the bed and carefully helped him change his dressing. Seeing the wounds on his master's body, even though he was used to killing, he still felt terrified. He lifted the gauze. Because of the bleeding and pus, a large portion of the gauze had already stuck to the flesh. Umo took a sharp knife and carefully cut away the stuck part. However, some parts of the wound still ruptured unavoidably. Umo quickly looked up at his master and sighed in his heart. Based on his master's abilities, the collapse of Jiuyou Tower would definitely not pose any threat to him. The reason why he was so severely injured was obviously because his master had done it on purpose. It was obvious who he did it for. Master, how long do you plan to recuperate for this injury? Umo took off the gauze and hesitated in the few bottles at the side. Xiao said lightly, use the gray bottle. Umo paused. Master, the medicine in this bottle is not very effective for your injury. Why don't we use the white bottle? He didn't dare to ask his master to use the gold bottle, which was the best, so he could only settle for the second best. However, that was still much better than the gray one. Xiao ignored his words and asked instead, how's Yanqing doing? Umo immediately replied, after you entered Jiuyou Tower, Yanqing immediately went there. According to him, he seemed to have made some discoveries. He's on the way back now and should be back today. Xiao grunted lightly. It was impossible to tell if he was happy or angry. The room fell into silence again. Umo hesitated for a moment and said boldly, Master, I know that you don't want to recover too quickly and arouse suspicion, but you have to think about Miss Lu Yu, right? She knows that you got injured because of her and must feel guilty. Your injury doesn't seem to be getting better day by day. Won't her heart ache every time she sees it? Xiao's fan-like eyelashes trembled slightly. Then he slowly opened his eyes and looked at Umo thoughtfully. His eyes were pure and deep, like the most brilliant and mysterious starry night. It was as if he could see through everything. Suddenly, a cluster of golden flames flashed in the depths of his eyes. Umo's heart skipped a beat. Master, digression, I've been having nightmares these few days. I dreamed that I was scolded for not updating properly, and even beaten up. I'll try my best not to be beaten up tomorrow at midnight. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 331. That golden light quickly disappeared as if it had never appeared. However, Umo was sure that he had not seen wrongly. His heart trembled as he hurriedly lowered his eyes. Master Yu, Xiao closed his eyes. After a while, he opened them again and regained his usual calmness. Continue. His thin lips gently spat out 2 words. Umo picked up the gray bottle and evenly sprinkled the powder inside on Xiao's wound. The bitter smell of medicine wafted in the air. Umo carefully bandaged his wound with new gauze while feeling conflicted. After he finished treating Xiao's wound and was about to put away the bottles of medicine, he finally could not help but say, Master, you haven't gone back for a long time. Do you want to take this chance to go back? Xiao's expression was calm and he did not say anything. Umo knew that this was a rejection, so he could only leave respectfully. However, when he reached the door, he recalled the golden flame that flashed in Xiao's eyes. He could not help but turn around and plead. Master, are you really not going to reconsider? Miss Liu finds out. What has Mu Qinghe done in the past 2 days? Rongxiu suddenly asked. Umo thought carefully and shook his head. Nothing. Other than the day of the fire at Tianlu Academy's Jiuyou Tower, he has been staying in his residence for the rest of the time. He has not come out and has not seen anyone. Umo frowned as he spoke. Master, are you going to stay here and watch over Mu Qinghe? Who knows how long Mu Qinghe will stay here for? However, Master's situation does not allow for any delays. Rongxiu pondered for a moment. You may leave. Carry on as usual. Yes. Umo responded but was still hesitant. Do you want to make arrangements for your return now? Rongxiu shook his head. I know what to do. Yes. Liao Zhongshu didn't have to wait long before he saw Chu Luiyue walk out of the room. He asked in surprise, so fast? Chu Luiyue smiled. Yes. I found some clues. I'll go back and think about it. You should go back too. Only then was Liao Zhongshu relieved. He bid farewell to Chu Luiyue and left. Chu Luiyue returned to his residence alone. She went up to the second floor, entered her room and locked the doors and windows before taking out the letter. At first glance, this letter was no different from an ordinary letter. However, the complicated Xian formation on it made Chu Luiyue understand that this was a letter that the other party had deliberately sent to target her. She took a deep breath. This Xian formation should be a level 5 Xian formation, but its difficulty could be considered one of the highest. Even a true level 5 mystic cultivator might not be able to successfully fill in the remaining mystic formations. The strength she had shown to the outside world was definitely not at this level, but the other party had sent such a letter. There was only one explanation. The other party firmly believed that she could solve this Xian formation and open this letter. Chu Luiyue's hand that was holding the letter tightened slightly. In this world there were very few people who knew that she had such strength. Then who was the person who was targeting her and knew her so well? Chu Luiyue had a faint premonition. Perhaps the answer was hidden in this letter. She held her breath and concentrated, beginning to study the Xian formation on the letter. After a moment she picked up a brush from the table and dipped it in ink. Then she lightly drew a line on the letter and began to fill in the Xian formation. Time passed by minute and the Xian formation on the letter gradually became complete. Because she didn't add any force and only drew the Xian formation, Chu Luiyue's process of drawing the Xian formation became much simpler. However, even so, this complicated Xian formation still took her a lot of effort. After about an hour she finally finished drawing the entire Xian formation. When she finished the last stroke, the Xian formation on the letter suddenly lit up. Then it transformed into countless rays of light and scattered in all directions. Chu Luiyue waited for everything to dissipate before she finally opened the letter. She reached her hand inside intending to take out the letter. When she touched the letter, Chu Luiyue's heart suddenly jumped. Then she almost couldn't wait and unbelievably pulled out the letter. It was a piece of high-quality Xian paper. The texture was soft, glossy like jade and extremely delicate. However, Chu Luiyue widened her eyes in shock. Because she couldn't be more familiar with this touch. Her hands trembled slightly as she held up the letter. Sunlight shone in from the window and actually penetrated the letter, leaving sand shadows on the ground as bright as the moon. Chu Luiyue's heart seemed to have been struck by something. This is the Xian moon paper that was specially used in the Tianling dynasty's palace. It was extremely precious. Not to mention the palace servants, even the ordinary concubines and unfavored princes and princesses were not qualified to use it. The reason why she was familiar with it was because she was very fond of it. Whether it was books, paintings or other things, she used the Xian moon paper the most. Countless guesses appeared in Chu Luiyue's heart in an instant. This Xian moon paper was extremely precious and had always been specially provided in the Tianling dynasty. It was impossible for ordinary people to get their hands on it. To be able to get this Xian moon paper and specially send it to her, she fiercely closed her eyes, trying hard to calm herself down and slowly opened the letter. On the soft and delicate paper, there was only one line of handwriting. Shengguan Yu, long time no see. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 332. The sun was shining brightly and a gentle breeze passed through the wooden window. The room was quiet and peaceful. However, Chu Liwei seemed to be frozen on the spot, unable to move at all. The blood in her body seemed to have frozen at this moment, and her cold limbs seemed to have gone numb. In her mind, it was as if someone had smashed a huge hammer. It was dull and painful. She held the piece of paper. It was light and thin, but it seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. She only felt her vision go white, and every word on the paper was like a sharp knife that ruthlessly pierced her heart. She almost couldn't breathe. Shengguanyu, Shengguanyu. This name had been buried deep in her heart, and she didn't even want to mention it in her dreams. Now it had appeared clearly on a piece of moon rice paper. She had always thought that she had hidden it very well and had even deceived Chu Ning, who had been with the original body. However, she didn't expect that someone had already known about it. The other party clearly knew her biggest secret, but she didn't even know who the other party was. Chu Liwei felt dizzy. She bit the tip of her tongue hard, letting the sharp pain wake her up. She quickly looked around. After confirming that there was no one else around, she heaved a heavy sigh and looked at the letter carefully. There was only one sentence on the paper. Other than that, there was nothing else. Chu Liwei compared the handwriting of that sentence with the handwriting on the envelope and found that it was indeed written by the same person. If she had seen such strong and vigorous handwriting before, she would definitely remember it. Unfortunately, no matter if it was in her previous life or this life, none of the people she knew had such a handwriting. However, the other party obviously knew her and had a high status. Or rather, they were extremely powerful. Otherwise, they definitely wouldn't have been able to obtain the moon rice paper. Chu Liwei stared at the letter and fell into deep thought. Who could it be? Since her rebirth, she had been staying in country Yao Chen's imperial capital. This place was thousands of miles away from the Tianling dynasty, and she had no way of contacting anyone from the past. Moreover, after experiencing the inhumane torture in the imperial ancestral hall, she had already lost her trust in everything in the past. Even Mu Qinghe, whom she had never suspected, had betrayed her, let alone the others. Her rebirth was her biggest secret and also her biggest trump card. She originally thought that she could become stronger step by step and then go back and take revenge on those people. Take back everything that belonged to him. But now that this letter had suddenly appeared, she suddenly realized that things were developing in a direction that she could not foresee. How have you been? How have you been? Chu Liwei murmured as countless faces flashed through his mind. Judging from his tone, he seemed to be quite familiar with her. However, she really couldn't figure out who the other party was. At this moment, she suddenly felt a strange movement in her dantian. Holding his breath and concentrating, the original spirit looked inside. Inside his dantian, the water droplet quietly floated. Directly below, within the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, a black-colored flame transformed into a legendary three-eyed eagle illusion. It was ferociously staring at the outside of the heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Dumpling? The two fiends were fighting with each other through the transparent heavenly square medicinal cauldron. Judging from the burnt fur on Dumpling's body, they had been fighting for a long time. Chu Liwei couldn't help but hold her forehead. Why are you fighting again? It hasn't even been 2 days since you came out of Juyo Tower, and you have already fought 5 times. Haven't you fought enough? Dumpling remained motionless as she stared at the legendary three-eyed eagle opposite her. Although the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast, it didn't have a physical body now. Only a soul was left in the karmic fire, and its size was about the same as Dumpling's. The legendary three-eyed eagle's scarlet eyes were indifferent and cold. If it wasn't trapped in the heavenly square medicinal cauldron, it would have long rushed out and killed this reckless thing in front of it 1,000 times. No matter what, it was a renowned paragon back then. Now it was reduced to fighting with a mere blood ferret. It was really shameless. Looking at the two fiends who were still at daggers drawn, Chu Liwei pondered for a moment, looked at Dumpling and said, "Dumpling, if you continue fighting, I won't stand up for you." Dumpling swung its tail and angrily pulled it up. Chu Liwei then saw that there was a burnt patch on it. "You're not angry because of this, are you?" Dumpling nodded fiercely. "That's it. Its beautiful fur had been destroyed. It had never suffered such grievances before. If it didn't get revenge for this, how could it continue living in this world?" Chu Liwei was speechless as she looked at its angry and self-righteous look. "Isn't this because you provoked it first?" Although she wasn't paying attention to the situation in her dantian, it didn't mean that she didn't know anything. Dumpling choked. A look of mockery flashed across the legendary three-eyed eagle's eyes. A mere third-grade fiend. Its level isn't high, but it has many problems. Dumpling was instantly enraged. Chu Luiwei glanced at the legendary three-eyed eagle indifferently. You're a divine beast, but aren't you staying here and fighting with a mere third-grade fiend? The legendary three-eyed eagle was stunned and felt extremely embarrassed. It flapped its wings fiercely. If it wasn't trapped by the heavenly square cauldron, it wouldn't have experienced such humiliation. Chu Luiwei saw that the two fiends finally stopped fighting, but another question arose in her heart. Dumpling was indeed a third-grade blood ferret. Facing the legendary three-eyed eagle, it should be respectful and fearful. However, the current situation didn't seem to be the case at all. Dumpling didn't seem to be as respectful as other fiends towards fiends that were of a higher grade than itself. It was like this when it faced the black flying python in Wanling Mountain, and it was the same when it faced the legendary three-eyed eagle now. But the key was that the legendary three-eyed eagle was a divine beast. What kind of secret was Dumpling hiding? Chu Luiwei looked at Dumpling and pondered for a while. She suddenly said, I remember that third-grade blood ferrets have the chance to break through and increase their grade. Dumpling, what about you? Dumpling was still hugging its tail pitifully as if it didn't care about this question. Chu Luiwei thought for a while and felt that there was no point in asking these questions. Dumpling wanted to follow her and she could feel that Dumpling liked and relied on her. Perhaps this was enough. As for those mysteries, perhaps they would be solved in the future. Chu Luiwei opened her eyes and looked at the letter in her hands again. After a while she put the letter away and placed it in her cosmic bag. The Xi family. Study room. Xi Ting looked at Xi Yi. His brows were slightly knitted on his cold face, and it was obvious that he didn't agree. You're asking me to find Chu Luiwei to ask about Rongzhen's whereabouts? Xi Yi coughed. I know that you don't like to do these things, but this is very important. I can only rest assured if I leave it to you. Xi Ting paused and said coldly, I'm not going. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 333. Xi Yi had already expected Xi Ting to reject him, so he wasn't surprised and patiently persuaded him. Xi Ting, I know that you have dealings with Xi Yang and Chu Luiwei. This isn't difficult for you. Master, I can't follow your orders. Xi Ting interrupted Xi Yi, which was rare of him. Xi Yi was stunned for a moment. It was only then that he realized that Xi Ting was very resistant to this matter. But this doesn't just involve Rongzhen. It also involves the Empress and Rongjin. After all, the Empress is a member of the Xi family. If anything happens to them, it will be a huge problem for the Xi family. Xi Ting glanced at Xi Yi and calmly asked, The Empress is the fourth princess. She should immediately inform His Majesty about her disappearance and get the Imperial Guards to look for her. Why would the Empress secretly let the Xi family do this? Also, it somehow involves Chu Luiwei. He remembered that Rongzhen and Chu Luiwei didn't interact much. The only time they met was at Crown Prince Rongjin's birthday banquet. That time, Rongzhen purposely humiliated Chu Luiwei in front of everyone, but she was taught a lesson by Chu Luiwei in the end. Perhaps Rongzhen hated Chu Luiwei from then on. According to her personality, it wasn't surprising that she secretly attacked Chu Luiwei after that. But now that she's missing, what does it have to do with Chu Luiwei? Xi Yi was at a loss for words. He couldn't tell Xi Ting about Elder Meng's existence. But Xi Ting was stubborn. If he wanted to get to the bottom of it, then these things are very complicated. Anyway, even if it's for the Xi family, what can you do by asking? Xi Ye's head hurt. As long as you don't let Chu Luiwei find out that you're asking about Rongzhen, she'll definitely know. Xi Ting said resolutely. Chu Luiwei was smarter than expected. Many times even he couldn't tell what she was thinking. Master, I've been classmates with Chu Luiwei for a few months, so I have some understanding of her. If this matter really had something to do with her, then once I open my mouth she would definitely be immediately alarmed. On the other hand, if there's no relationship between them, then asking her out of the blue will only arouse her curiosity and suspicion. Therefore, no matter how one looked at it, it was useless to get any information from Chu Luiwei. Xi Yi leaned back in his chair and fell into deep thought. He knew that Xi Ting's words made sense. But other than that, what else could he do? Get someone else to go? He was really worried. Si Ting looked at him with a dark expression. Patriarch. Chu Luiyue has already been selected by Vice Admiral Mu. Do you really want to put the entire Si family in danger for the Empress and the Crown Prince? Si was suddenly shocked. Mu Qinghe was resting in her room. Red Demon stood by the window and groomed its feathers from time to time. The wounds from the previous fight had already healed, but it still felt that it had affected its image, so it had been staying obediently for the time being. It wanted to wait until it was completely healed before going out. Once bitten, twice shy. I've taught you this lesson too many times. If you don't listen, you'll be the one who suffers in the end. Mu Qinghe glanced at Hong Yao and poured herself a cup of tea. Hong Yao pretended not to hear anything. Mu Qinghe looked at the rising white smoke without any expression on his face. You're only a 7th grade fiend now. How dare you fight with a divine beast? Hong Yao froze. It had not revealed anything from the beginning to the end. How did Mu Qinghe know? Mu Qinghe narrowed her eyes when she saw its reaction. It seems like it's true. It had been tricked. Hong Yao suddenly understood and was very annoyed. Mu Qinghe was just guessing and tricking it. Hong Yao glared at Mu Qinghe fiercely. It was always like this. It would betray its master sooner or later. Mu Qinghe picked up the teacup and rubbed it slowly. Divine beast. This place is indeed. His voice was very low and it was almost inaudible. Suddenly Hong Yao felt a familiar aura. Its eyes lit up as it flapped its wings and flew outside. Mu Qinghe looked up slightly and looked at the door with deep meaning. Chu Liwei looked up slightly and looked at the house in front of her. This was Mu Qinghe's residence in the Imperial City. There were no guards outside the door and even the streets beside it were deserted. She didn't meet anyone on her way here. Those who didn't know would find it strange if they came here. However, Mu Qinghe was the one living here, so everything made sense. In the Imperial City, there were countless people who wanted to visit Mu Qinghe in order to establish a relationship with him. However, nobody dared to do so. Even Emperor Zhou didn't dare to disturb him, let alone others. She heard that Emperor Zhou originally wanted to send a few people to serve Mu Qinghe, but he rejected them all. Hence there wasn't a single servant inside or outside the house. Mu Qinghe lived here by himself. However, there was a transparent barrier outside the door. From afar one wouldn't notice anything strange. However, once one got close they would immediately feel a strong suppression. Chu Liwei was thinking about how to knock on the door when a green figure suddenly flew out from the wall and went straight for her. Hong Yao. Chu Liwei looked shocked, but she thought in her heart, Hong Yao's sensitive sense of smell is still the same as before. Can even tell that it's me from so far away. Hong Yao happily flew in front of Chu Liwei. I was about to die from boredom these 2 days. I didn't expect Chu Liwei to come today. Hong Yao, your master. Creak. Before Chu Liwei could finish her sentence, the door suddenly opened from the inside. An entrance appeared above the spirit formation. Hong Yao quickly flapped its wings, urging Chu Liwei to hurry in. Chu Liu's lips curved up slightly as she walked in. Walking through the front yard and the corridor, Chu Liwei finally came to a room. The door was open and Mu Qinghe was sitting inside drinking tea. Chu Liwei was hesitating whether to speak or not when Mu Qinghe said without raising her head. Just come in. Chu Liwei followed Hong Yao in. Greetings, Vice Admiral Mu. After the first time it was much easier to bow to Mu Qinghe again. Only then did Mu Qinghe look up. If you feel bored here then you can go and focus on your cultivation. Chu Liwei was stunned for a moment before realizing that these words were directed at Hong Yao. Red Demon rolled its eyes, unwilling to give up. It had heard this kind of words countless times. If it was in a good mood it might listen to it. But now she was here. How could it be dismissed like this? Hong Yao landed next to Mu Qinghe's hand and drank tea from her teacup. Half of its head was almost buried in it. After drinking enough, it raised its head and shook its head violently. The tea splashed everywhere. Mu Qinghe gave it a warning look. Chu Liwei suddenly said, Vice Admiral Mu, I came here today to discuss something with you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 334. Mu Qinghe then looked at Chu Liwei. His voice was as cold and indifferent as ever. Speak. Hong Yao knew when to stop. It immediately took the opportunity to run and hide behind the window. Chu Liwei glanced at it from the corner of her eye and sighed in her heart. Hong Yao was really troublesome. It knew that Mu Qinghe hated it when people touched his tea, but it still dared to do so. It was really rare for it to survive until now. It was strange. Mu Qinghe came from a humble background. When he was young, he had to snatch rotten buns from beggars and did not have a good day. Later on, when he followed her, his conditions in all aspects improved a lot. However, he was not like other people who had risen from poverty and were passionate about those luxuries. Instead, he was wholeheartedly focused on cultivation and war. Except for one thing, tea. Even she did not know when he fell in love with tea. Not only did he like to drink tea, but he also liked to make tea. Chu Liwei remembered that he had good tea brewing skills. Even the tea masters in the palace might not be comparable to him. She stopped thinking and looked at Mu Qinghe. She briefly told him her plan. So, I'm here this time to hope that you can approve it. As for the length of time I stay in Tai Yen Academy, it's up to you. Mu Qinghe picked up another cup and poured a cup of tea. He looked at Chu Liwei with a scrutinizing gaze. It seems like you're sure that I won't leave here in the short term. That's why you have the guts to make such a request? Chu Liu's smile did not change. Didn't you say before that you would stay here for a period of time? I don't know how long you're referring to, but I'm here to ask. Phil. It's an extremely rare opportunity to borrow books from other academies' libraries for free. I don't want to miss it. Vice Admiral Mu, please understand. Mu Qinghe did not speak for a long time. Other than looking for a genius with a Daijing Yuan meridian, he did have other important things to do this time. It would definitely not end in 3 to 5 days. Chu Liu's request did not seem wrong. However, you can go if you want, but I have a question that you have to answer honestly. Chu Liu nodded. Vice Admiral Mu, please speak. Mu Qinghe stared at her. That day in Zhuyo Tower, did you get something? Chu Liu's heart skipped a beat. Then her eyes widened slightly as if she was surprised and curious. What do you mean? Mu Qinghe didn't say anything. He just looked at her with a deep gaze as if he wanted to expose her lie. His cultivation level was extremely high, so the pressure on his body was also extremely strong. His piercingly cold gaze was almost tangible. If it were anyone else, they probably wouldn't be able to withstand such scrutiny. But Chu Liu was different. She had met Mu Qinghe when he was at his lowest. She had seen him at his most miserable and pitiful state. She had also given Mu Qinghe a chance to become the youngest deputy general of the Tianling dynasty. She had seen him in his most glorious state. Hence, Mu Qinghe's gaze was completely useless to her. She frowned slightly as if she was thinking. After a while, she shook her head. Vice Admiral Mu, I'm sorry. I really don't know what you're talking about. That day the situation was critical. Prince Li and I escaped with great difficulty. Not only did we not bring anything with us, but we also almost lost our lives there. What exactly do you want to ask? Mu Qinghe looked at the woman in front of him. Intelligent, quick-witted, and a genius. Her expression was so sincere that it even made him wonder if his initial guess was wrong. Chu Liu pursed her lips hesitantly. Then she asked softly in a probing tone. Vice Admiral Mu? Are you looking for something? Mu Qinghe's gaze sharpened. The aura on his body instantly surged, and it surged toward Chu Liu. Screech. Hong Yao let out a clear cry. A green flame instantly flew in front of Chu Liu, transformed into a barrier. It blocked Mu Qinghe's coercion outside. The two forces fought crazily. Bang! The tea set beside Mu Qinghe's hand shattered. Even the entire set of tables and chairs had many cracks on them. Chu Liu frowned slightly. He was just asking a probing question. She didn't expect Mu Qinghe to have such a big reaction. This only proved that she was right. But why did Mu Qinghe come all the way here? What exactly is he looking for? The forces of both sides gradually dissipated, leaving the entire room in a mess. Chu Liu glanced at the broken teacup on the ground. It seemed to be freshly soaked Jin Junmei. In the past, Mu Qinghe never drank this kind of tea. She retracted her gaze. Vice Admiral Mu, did you misunderstand something? I just wanted to say that very few people set foot on the upper floors of Zhuyo Tower. Prince Li and I were able to come out safely from the 6th floor thanks to the things his mother left there. If you really want to find something, perhaps Prince Li will have some clues. The murderous intent in Mu Qinghe's eyes gradually faded. No need. As soon as he finished speaking, the room fell into a dead silence. Chu Luiyue felt that if this continued, the matter might not be settled. She could only cough to break the deadlock. Vice Admiral Mu, your tea spilled. Why don't I compensate you with a pot of tea? I happened to get a bottle of superior grade Jun Mei some time ago. Although it's definitely not good enough for you, but no need. Mu Qinghe interrupted her and paused for a moment. I'll give you 10 days. Chu Luiyue smiled happily. Thank you, Vice Admiral Mu. Although this person's temper became more and more unpredictable, she was still very happy that he was willing to agree to her request. Mu Qinghe looked at the smiling girl in front of him and was momentarily dazed. That pair of bright and pure black jade-like eyes were too similar. They were clearly two different faces, but when they smiled, the expression between their eyebrows was so similar. However, when he took a closer look, he felt that it wasn't the same. There were too many things hidden in Chu Luiyue's eyes. That was an expression that only someone who had experienced countless hardships would have. She was different. She was always noble, pure and clean. Mu Qinghe averted his gaze without batting an eyelid. During this period of time, the number of times he had thought of her was simply too frequent. This was not a good thing. Go back. Remember, you only have 10 days. Chu Luiyue noticed that Mu Qinghe's mood seemed to have changed a little, but she knew that it was no good for her to stay, so she happily bowed and left. Hong Yao followed her to the door reluctantly. She had only been here for a short while and she was leaving. Moreover, according to what they said just now, didn't it mean that it would not see her for the remaining 10 days? Chu Luiyue walked to the boundary and looked back at Hong Yao, who was reluctant to leave. She leaned closer and whispered, "You're too young. I'll bring you a gift when I come back." Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 335. Hong Yao then cheered up again. Chu Luiyue stepped out of the barrier and left. Hong Yao watched as her figure disappeared. When it was sure that she had left, it suddenly let out a joyful cry. I finally have a present again. Hong Yao happily returned to the courtyard and saw Mu Qinghe cleaning up the broken teacup. Hong Yao was in a good mood, so it didn't plan to continue arguing with Mu Qinghe. However, it still couldn't help but go over and fly one round around Mu Qinghe. Mu Qinghe looked up and coldly glanced at Hong Yao. It seems like she knows how to coax you. Hong Yao proudly raised its head. Mu Qinghe said in a low voice, I won't help you in the future. I won't help her for your sake in the future. You're on your own now. I know that you're so close to her because you think that she's similar to her. However, I'm warning you for the last time. It's hard to predict people's hearts in this world. If she knows this, she'll definitely think of ways to make use of you. Don't regret it then. After all, he was Hong Yao's master. How could he not guess Hong Yao's thoughts? From the first time he saw Chu Luiyue until now, there was only one reason why Hong Yao was so close to her. He could tolerate it once, but it didn't mean that he would let people take advantage of him. Hong Yao glanced at him faintly. Ah, stupid human. I wonder who's the one who'll really regret it then. Even though 10 days was relatively short, it already surprised Chu Luiyue. What made her even happier was that Mu Hongyu told her early the next morning that her mother had arrived in the imperial city. This took less time than she expected. The news of Princess Consort Ping Zhang's arrival in the imperial city quickly spread, and Emperor Zhaoan specially sent people to welcome her. However, considering that Princess Consort Ping Zhang's health wasn't good, he didn't hold a palace banquet to welcome her. Mu Hongyu and Chu Luiyue went to Prince Ping Zhang's mansion in the imperial city together. I didn't know that your father had a special residence in the imperial city. Chu Luiyue followed Mu Hongyu into the strictly guarded Wang Fu and was somewhat surprised. Mu Hongyu giggled. Because my imperial father will come back to the imperial capital for 2 months every 3 years. Therefore, His Majesty specially approved a residence for my father. I came here once when I was a kid. I didn't hear you mention it before. Why didn't you stay here after you entered the academy? Why did you stay in the academy instead? Mu Hongyu made a face. Who wants to live here? With so many people, there were also many rules. It was not convenient at all. It's best to stay in the academy. Chu Luiyue thought about it and agreed. Not only was the academy free and convenient, it was also safe. With Mu Hongyu's personality, it was hard for her to imagine living here alone. The two of them walked inside, When he arrived at the backyard, a white-robed old man with white hair was already standing there waiting for him. Upon seeing the old man, Mu Hongyu was overjoyed and rushed forward. "Grandpa Wu Shan, you're here too?" The wrinkles on Wu Shan's face bloomed like a flower as he chuckled. "Young princess, it's been a few months since we last met. This old man misses you dearly. Quick, tell this old man, has the young princess been crying in the past few months?" Mu Hongyu couldn't help but pout. "Grandpa Wu Shan, we haven't met for so long. Why are you talking about this the moment we meet? I'm already 16 years old. I've stopped crying long ago." Wu Shan's face revealed a trace of surprise. Young princess has already broken through to become a stage 4 warrior? Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose proudly. Of course. Young princess has really grown up. And she's getting more and more outstanding. If His Highness and Her Highness knew about this, they would be very happy. Wu Shan sighed. Mu Hongyu hurriedly asked. "By the way, how is mother now?" The smile on Wu Shan's face froze and a trace of worry appeared. "Young princess, you should go and see for yourself." Mu Hongyu's heart sank. Could it be that mother's condition is worse than I imagined? That's right. After all, she has been traveling day and night. Perhaps her condition has worsened. I'll go and take a look, Mu Hongyu said as she pulled Chu Luiyue into the house. However, Wu Shan suddenly blocked the two of them and swept his gaze across Chu Luiyue. Look at me. I forgot to introduce her. Grandpa Wu Shan, this is Chu Luiyue. It's all thanks to her that Vice Admiral Mu is willing to help this time. Wu Shan was shocked when he heard the name. He hurriedly took a step back and cupped his hands. So it's Miss Chu. Sorry for the disrespect. Although they had just arrived at the capital city, the name Chu Luiyue was very well known. I really don't know how to repay your kindness this time, Wu Shan said with a face of gratitude. Senior Wu Shan, you're too kind. Hongyu and I are friends, so this is what I should do. Chu Luiyue glanced at the anxious Mu Hongyu and smiled. If you don't mind, I would like to visit the princess consort with Hongyu. Is that okay? Of course. Of course. Please come in. The princess consort's condition was very serious, but no outsiders knew about it. Wu Shan and the rest were very vigilant along the way. If it were someone else, they would definitely not agree. However, this person was Chu Luiyue, so there was no problem. After all, without her help, the envoy of the Tianling dynasty would not agree to hire a celestial physician to treat the princess consort's illness. Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu quickly walked into the house together. Wu Shan stood outside and watched over them. The moment they entered the room, Chu Luiyue saw a woman lying on the bed. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. This must be Mu Hongyu's mother. Her eyes were closed and her face was pale. Her cheeks were sunken and there was an aura of death between her brows. She looked very haggard. Mu Hongyu's eyes reddened as she rushed to the bedside. Mother! When the princess consort heard the voice, her eyeballs seemed to move and she slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were dim and she was exhausted as if she had exhausted all her energy. She looked at Mu Hongyu and reached out with difficulty to touch Mu Hongyu's face. She revealed a pale and weak smile as she said in a hoarse voice. Mu Hongyu's eyes instantly welled up with tears. She immediately lowered her head to wipe them away as if she did not want her mother to see her like this. However, as she held her mother's bony hand, she couldn't stop her tears from rolling down her cheeks. Mother, why are you like this? Mu Hongyu had left home to study at Tianlu Academy for less than a year. Although her mother's health was not good in the past, she was not like this. The princess consort helped Mu Hongyu wipe her tears slowly, but she quickly lost her strength. Another old man in green standing by the bedside stroked his beard. Young princess, don't worry. Wait for the people from the Tianling dynasty to come. There will definitely be a way. Mu Hongyu knew that this was her only hope now, so she could only nod and swallow her tears. A clear female voice could be heard. May I take the princess consort's pulse first? Digression, 12 a.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 336. Everyone in the room looked at Chu Luiyue. Mu Hongyu naturally had no objections and nodded in agreement. Then she looked at Princess Consort Pingjiang and said, Mother, this is Lu Yu. She's my best friend in Tianlu Academy. Vice Admiral Mu only agreed to help because of her help. Princess Consort Ping Jiang looked at Chu Liyue with a loving gaze. Thank you so much. Mother, Lu Yu is also a celestial physician. You probably don't know, but she refined a pill during the Qingjiao competition a few days ago. In other words, she's a real celestial physician. Let her take a look at you. She might be able to help. Princess Consort Ping Jiang smiled and nodded. I'll listen to you. Just as Chu Liyue was about to step forward, the green-clothed elder beside her suddenly said, Young princess, I'm afraid this isn't very appropriate. Chu Liyue looked up slightly. Mu Hongyu was stunned. Grandfather Ji Chong, what do you mean? Ji Chong stroked his beard and said earnestly, Don't worry. Young princess, I know you're thinking for the princess consort. However, I'm afraid Ms. Chu won't be able to help with this matter. Mu Hongyu thought for a moment and asked, You don't believe me? Do you not trust Lu Yu? Of course not. Ji Chong shook his head. Miss Chu is very famous and we've all heard of her. To be able to form a pill at such a young age is enough to prove Miss Chu's shocking talent. However, the princess consort has been seriously ill for a long time. Even the top celestial physician in country Yao Qin can't do anything about it, let alone Miss Chu. Why don't we wait for the Tianling dynasty's celestial physician to come before we take a look? Mu Hongyu furrowed her brows in displeasure. Grandfather Ji Chong, I'm just asking Lu Yu to take my mother's pulse. It's not a big deal. Besides, the celestial physician from the Tianling dynasty hasn't arrived yet, so we can only wait. It won't hurt to let Lu Yu take a look. Aren't you being a little too cautious? Ji Chong looked a little troubled. Young princess, I didn't mean to stop you, but, Sai, you don't know. Before we came here, His Highness told us to keep the princess's condition a secret. We can't let anyone know about it, so you still don't trust Lu Yu? Mu Hongyu was really angry this time. She stood up and looked straight at Ji Chong with a solemn expression. Grandfather Ji Chong, Lu Yu has helped us so much. Why are you still so wary of her? If I can't even trust her, then there's no one I can trust in the capital. You're hurting my heart. Ji Chong didn't seem to expect Mu Hongyu to value Chu Liyue so much. For a moment he was at a loss. But, His Highness, I'll talk to father about it. Besides, even if father is here, he won't be so unreasonable. Mu Hongyu didn't want to talk to him anymore. She turned to look at Chu Liyue. Lu Yu, don't take it to heart. Come and take a look at my mother. Ji Chong was a little embarrassed and could only take a step back. Chu Liyue was deep in thought. This Ji Chong seemed to be especially reluctant to let her touch the princess consort. She walked forward and put her fingers on the princess consort's wrist. Ji Chong looked over. Chu Liyue's expression didn't change. After a while she let go of her hand. Liu, how's my mother's condition? Can you see anything? Mu Hongyu asked anxiously. Chu Liyue shook her head. The princess consort has been ill for many years and her body is extremely weak. But other than that, there's nothing I can do. Regret surfaced on Mu Hongyu's face. The celestial physician in the past also said the same thing. Moreover, she could clearly feel that her mother's condition was worse than before. Chu Liyue patted her shoulder lightly. Don't worry, the celestial physician in the Tianling dynasty will definitely have a way. Mu Hongyu forced a smile. I hope so. Just as the atmosphere in the room became heavy, Wuxian's voice suddenly came from outside. So it's Vice Admiral Mu. Sorry for not welcoming you, it's really disrespectful. Hearing the sound, the people in the room all looked outside. Chu Liyue walked to the door and saw Mu Qinghe in the courtyard. Beside him stood a young man in blue. That man looked to be in his 20s and wore a blue brocade robe with a white jade belt around his waist, outlining his tall and smooth body. He was very tall. Mu Qinghe was a general and was already very tall and strong. But this man standing beside him was a head taller. But what was more eye-catching was that he had a pair of blue eyes. Those eyes were like the purest ice crystals, shining with a cold light. But there was a careless smile on his face, making him look like a demon that looked at the world with a cold smile. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to have been hit by something. How could it be him? Wu Shan was standing in front of Mu Qinghe and Lu Yu, extremely nervous. I'm so sorry. We didn't know Vice Admiral Mu was coming today, so we didn't prepare at all. Wu Shan was secretly ashamed of himself. He was already so old and had seen so much, but he didn't expect to be so nervous in front of these two young men. Sure, he couldn't be blamed. It was mainly because the aura of Mu Qinghe and the young man in blue was too strong, and he couldn't ignore it at all. Just by standing there he already felt an inexplicable pressure, and even his breathing became a little labored. Mu Qinghe didn't want to waste time and looked up to see Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue went forward in surprise. Vice Admiral Mu. I didn't expect you to come directly. Hong Yu and I have just arrived, so please forgive us for not taking care of you well. As she spoke, she walked to Wu Shan. Senior Wu Shan, leave this to me. You can continue to guard the courtyard. Wu Shan instantly heaved a sigh of relief and felt grateful toward Chu Luiyue. Okay. I'll leave these two distinguished guests to you. Chu Luiyue nodded slightly. Wu Shan hurriedly retreated. It wasn't until he was 10 steps away that he carefully exhaled and calmed his wildly beating heart. The people of the Tianling dynasty were indeed extraordinary. The two of them looked so young, but their strength was far above his. Chu Luiyue then looked at the young man in blue beside Mu Qinghe and asked curiously, "May I ask if this is the celestial physician you invited? How should I address him?" Before Mu Qinghe could speak, the young man in blue spoke first in a languid tone. Jian Fengqi. He had a smile on his face and he looked very friendly and gentle. His blue eyes were even more alluring. However, Chu Luiyue's heart was alarmed. Nothing good would come out of this man's smile every time. In the past she had many conflicts with him. She didn't know why Mu Qinghe was so close to him now. Chu Luiyue thought about it, but he didn't expect that the person Mu Qinghe invited would be him. Greetings, young Master Jian. Chu Luiyue curtsied. Jian Fengqi suddenly leaned closer to Mu Qinghe and laughed softly. Don't you think she looks like someone? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 337. Mu Qinghe glanced at him coldly with a hint of warning. Jian Fengqi didn't take it seriously and smiled flirtatiously. Even I can see it. Can't you see it? Those eyes are really... Jian Fengqi. Mu Qinghe's voice sounded like it was mixed with ice shards. Jian Fengqi finally restrained himself and shrugged. Hey, I won't say it. Although he was talking to Mu Qinghe, his eyes were fixed on Chu Luiyue. To be precise, he was looking at her face. May I know your name? He was tall and handsome, and when his icy eyes stared at a person seriously, it was as if they could transform into a surging sea, bringing with them an ambiguous and affectionate feeling that made people sink into them. Chu Luiyue couldn't remember how many girls he had won over with his looks. Everyone in the Tianling dynasty knew how flirtatious Jian Fengqi was, but there were still countless girls who flocked to him, just to beg him to look at them a little more. But he had always been in the midst of flowers and never touched a single leaf. Chu Luiyue couldn't figure out how he got rid of those girls, and how they didn't complain about him and couldn't forget him. Chu Luiyue tried her best to suppress the urge to punch the man in the face, and her lips curled into a perfect polite smile. Chu Luiyue. Oh, Jian Fengqi's eyes lit up for a moment and he glanced at Mu Qinghe meaningfully as he dragged out his words. What a good name. Chu Luiyue had always been too lazy to pay attention to him, but now that there was a great disparity between their statuses, she had to accept it. Thank you for your compliment, young Master Jian. Liu can't thank you enough for coming all the way here to help. Jian Fengqi was still smiling, but there was a trace of surprise in his heart. Most women would blush and their hearts would race when they saw him. Even the worst would have a look of admiration in their eyes. But this girl in front of him had never changed her expression since she saw him. This is rare. No wonder he could persuade Mu Qinghe to ask for his help. If there wasn't a special reason, he didn't think that Mu Qinghe would be willing to spend so much effort to invite him over. Not at all. It's my honor to have a beauty's request. Chu Luiyue rolled her eyes in her heart. She thought that many things had changed after more than a year. But now it seemed that Jian Fengqi's coquettishness was still very good. Vice Admiral Mu, young Master Jian, this way. Chu Luiyue did not want to be entangled with him for too long, so she turned sideways and invited them into the house. Just lead the way, said Lu Yu. Nodded. Chu Luiyue didn't insist and took the lead. Looking at her back view, Jian Fengqi poked Mu Qinghe's arm and lowered his voice. I think I know why you invited me over now. Mu Qinghe's expression was as cold as usual. She looked straight ahead and didn't intend to bother with Jian Fengqi. But Jian Fengqi wasn't bothered by her cold attitude. Instead, the smile on his face became even more arrogant. I didn't say who she looked like just now. Why are you angry? Mu Qinghe paused in her footsteps. If you don't want the 5-colored origin stone, feel free to continue or go back now. The smile on Jian Fengqi's face froze. I was just joking. Why are you so serious? Hey. I promise that I won't mention this again, okay? As he spoke, he lifted his feet and followed her. He thought to himself that this person's temper was getting harder to please. Chu Liwei pretended not to hear what the two were saying. When they reached the door, Mu Hongyu and Ji Chong were already waiting there. Both of them were surprised to see Jian Fengqi so young. Ji Chong was fine, but Mu Hongyu had always been a straightforward person. Can this person do it? Was written all over her face. Jian Fengqi looked at Mu Hongyu with great interest. Miss, you don't seem to trust me very much? Mu Hongyu didn't feel embarrassed and said frankly. I think so. Jian Fengqi was waiting for Mu Hongyu to say a few polite words. He didn't expect her to admit it directly. The teasing words in his throat were suddenly choked. However, since you were invited by Vice Admiral Mu, you must be a very good celestial physician. Jian Fengqi felt a little better. He smiled lazily and wickedly. Miss, next time when you praise someone, don't pause for too long. Mu Hongyu nodded obediently for the sake of the other party's background. However, she was thinking in her heart, why is this man smiling so strangely? Chu Liwei gave a simple introduction to the few of them, then directly led the topic to the princess consort of Pingjiang. Vice Admiral Mu, young Master Jian, this is the princess consort of Pingjiang. She is also the person who hopes that young Master Jian can help this time. The princess consort of Pingjiang smiled weakly. I'm really sorry. Both of you have worked hard to come here, but I can't even get out of bed. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes slightly. The princess consort seems to have been poisoned. The princess consort of Pingjiang widened her eyes slightly. Young Master Jian is indeed amazing. You can guess that I've been poisoned without even taking my pulse. Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows. If he couldn't even do this, then he would be too useless. Mu Hongyu looked excited. She quickly moved aside and took Jian Fengqi's pulse. Young Master Jian, please. As she spoke, she walked to Chu Liue's side and whispered. The people of the Tianling dynasty are indeed extraordinary. Celestial physician who has treated my mother in the past has never been able to tell that my mother has been poisoned without taking her pulse. Chu Liue nodded. Although Jian Fengqi wasn't a good person, he was still skilled. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so presumptuous. Jian Fengqi took out a handkerchief and placed it on the princess consort's wrist before putting his long fingers on it. Mu Hongyu hesitated for a moment, but still couldn't help but add on. I originally thought that he wasn't a good person, but now it doesn't seem to be the case. Chu Liue and her looked at each other. She didn't know why, but she felt that Mu Hongyu's words just now seemed to have meant he wasn't a good person. However, seeing that Mu Hongyu wasn't infatuated with Jian Fengqi like other girls, she was greatly relieved. She didn't want Mu Hongyu to provoke this guy. Jian Fengqi raised his eyebrows slightly. It seemed that they didn't know that although their voices were very soft, he could still hear them clearly, right? Immediately, his expression froze. Everyone in the room was looking at him. Seeing the change in his expression, they all quieted down. Mu Hongyu couldn't hide her worry as she held Chu Liue's hand. Chu Liue gently patted the back of her hand. Princess Consort Pingjiang lay weakly on the bed. Although her eyes were dim and lifeless, there was still a faint trace of hope. Chu Liue suddenly thought of something. Her gaze turned slightly and looked at Ji Chong, who was standing at the side. At this moment, his hands were crossed in front of him and his eyes were fixed on Jian Fengqi. He seemed to be particularly nervous. Chu Liue could even see him licking his cracked lips, looking worried and tense. Jian Fengqi let go of her hand. Ji Chong was the first to speak. Young Master Jian, do you have a way to cure the princess consort's poison? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 338. Jian Fengqi pondered for a moment. The poison in the princess consort's body, Seems to be a mixture of several types, and they were administered at different times. Mu Hongyu exclaimed. How could this be? All this time she had thought that the poison in her mother's body was caused by an accident many years ago. She never thought that, mother, is what he said true. Mu Hongyu quickly looked at Princess Consort Ping Jiang. Princess Consort Ping Jiang's eyes flashed with bitterness and she smiled bleakly. That's right, Jian Fengqi added. If I'm not wrong, the princess consort's body should have suddenly deteriorated in the past 2 months, right? Princess Consort Ping Jiang nodded. That's it. Jian Fengqi stood up. The first few types of poison in the princess consort's body had been buried in her body for many years, and had already seeped into her organs. But because they were not highly toxic, they did not cause too serious of a consequence. But recently, someone administered another type of poison, which triggered all the toxins in the princess consort's body at the same time. That's why she was defeated like a landslide, resulting in the current situation. Mu Hongyu looked as if she was struck by lightning and she stared blankly at Jian Fengqi. Then, what should we do now? Can you get rid of all these poisons? Jian Fengqi frowned slightly and he seemed to be in a difficult position. This is a difficult task. After all, these poisons were administered at different times and they are of different types. To get rid of all of them, not only do we have to know what these poisons are, but we also have to avoid new problems during the detoxification process. If we're not careful, all our previous efforts will be wasted and even. Jian Fengqi paused. Even if he did not finish the rest of his sentence, everyone knew what he meant. Mu Hongyu was a little absent-minded. Could it be that even the celestial physician of the Tianling dynasty could not do anything? Ji Chong heaved a long sigh and his face was full of grief. Young Master Jian, please think of something. The prince and the princess consort are deeply in love, and have supported each other for many years. If the princess consort... Of course. Jian Fengqi suddenly interrupted Ji Chong, and the corner of his mouth curled into an evil smile. Ji Chong was stunned for a moment, and the sorrowful expression on his face instantly froze. You mean, this poison is very difficult to deal with, but I didn't say that I can't deal with it. Jian Fengqi's smile deepened. Everyone finally understood what Jian Fengqi meant. Chu Luiwei cursed in his heart. As expected, he was still the same. If he didn't speak like this, it would seem that he couldn't show how powerful he was. However, Jian Fengqi also noticed that something was wrong with Ji Chong. Don't worry, everyone. I will definitely clean up the princess consort's poison and let her recover completely. Chu Liyue's gaze quickly swept across Ji Chang's face before he lowered his eyes. She clearly saw the shock and fear that flashed across Jian Fengqi's eyes when he heard him say that he could cure the princess consort of Pingjiang. It's not hard to understand the shock, but what's with the fear? The fact that he could escort Pingjiang Wangfei all the way to the imperial capital meant that Pingjiang Wangfei trusted him a lot. Moreover, from the way Mu Hongyu addressed him and Wu Shan, they were also very close to each other. It doesn't make sense that he would be afraid after knowing that Pingjiang Wangfei's body could be cured. Chu Luiwei recalled that when she wanted to check Pingjiang Wangfei's pulse, Ji Chong refused several times as if he was afraid of something. Perhaps he had a guilty conscience. Young Master Jian, is what you said true? Can you really cure my mother? Mu Hongyu didn't notice anything unusual. Her mind was only filled with Jian Fengqi's words. Jian Fengqi looked at the young girl who rushed to him in a few steps, her almond-shaped eyes shining brightly. His heart skipped a beat and his smile deepened. Of course, I Jian Fengqi always keep my word. If he couldn't solve such a small problem, then he would have wasted all these years. Mu Hongyu was extremely excited. She pounced to the bedside and held Pingjiang Wangfei's hand. Mother, did you hear that? Your illness will be cured. Pingjiang Wangfei didn't have any extra strength at this time. She could only smile with a pale face and look at Mu Hongyu. Chu Liwei said, Hong Yao, it seems that the Wangfei needs to rest. Let's go out and talk. Mu Hongyu nodded repeatedly. All right. Mother, you rest here first. I'll come to see you later. Pingjiang Wangfei nodded reluctantly. I still have to thank young Master Jian and Vice Admiral Mu, and Lu Yu. She finally closed her eyes and rested after saying those words with great difficulty. Chu Luiwei and the others walked out. Mu Hongyu just stood up and saw a handkerchief on Pingjiang Wangfei's wrist. She picked up the handkerchief and shouted at Jian Fengqi, who had already walked to the door. Young Master Jian, your handkerchief. Jian Fengqi paused in his steps and turned around to take a look. Chu Liuyue's lips moved. She almost directly asked Mu Hongyu to throw the handkerchief away. Jian Fengqi had a problem. He was a celestial physician and often had to take people's pulse. However, every time he examined someone he would spread a handkerchief like this time and never touch it with his own hands. The material of the handkerchief was extremely precious, but he would only use it once and throw it away. He had been like this since Chu Liuyue met him. He didn't know why. Other than that, he had many hobbies that were neither too big nor too small, and he was very persistent. Even when she was the heavenly fate princess, she also felt that this man was very fussy. Unexpectedly, Jian Fengqi stared at Mu Hongyu and didn't ask her to throw the handkerchief away. Instead, he laughed. Oh, I almost forgot. As he spoke, he walked towards Mu Hongyu. Chu Liuyue looked at him as if she had seen a ghost. What's wrong with him? Jian Fengqi seemed to have noticed something and tilted his head to look at her. Chu Liuyue immediately lowered her eyes and continued to walk towards the door. Jian Fengqi narrowed his eyes. He didn't know why, but he felt that Chu Liuyue seemed to dislike him. Even if she always had a polite smile on her face, he still felt that way. And this feeling was inexplicably familiar. He suppressed the thoughts in his heart and reached out to take the handkerchief from Mu Hongyu's hand. The two people's hands touched for a moment. However, he didn't seem to feel it. He bowed slightly with a smile on his face. There was a hint of elegance in his eyes. Thank you, Miss Mu. Mu Hongyu smiled brightly. Young Master Jian, you're welcome. If there's anything you need my help with in the future, just let me know. Jian Fengqi looked at her and raised his eyebrows slightly. This Mu Hong seems a little too innocent. If an ordinary woman was touched like this, even if she wasn't tempted, her face would turn red. However, Mu Hongyu didn't seem to have any reaction at all. Only then did he vaguely realize that the bright light in her almond-shaped eyes was indeed because of her mother's recovery and not because of him. This made him feel a little conflicted. Why are these two women each weirder than the other? Chu Liuyue, who had walked out of the door, waved at Mu Hongyu. Hongyu. Digression. Why is it so long? Because I went to the hospital in between. My body is a little inflamed, but it's not serious. Love mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from love. In the beginning, he wasn't willing to let Chu Liuyue take her pulse, and he wasn't willing to leave just now. More importantly, he didn't seem to be as happy as she thought he would be when it came to her mother's recovery. He had followed father and mother for so many years, and he had been running around for mother's illness many times in the past. But now that there was hope, his reaction was a little strange. You mean? Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Liuyue with uncertainty. Chu Liuyue chuckled. Just look at the future. However, you have to remember one thing. In this world, no matter how close the person is to you, no matter how much you trust them, they can still betray you. When that time comes, you might not even know how you died. Mu Qinghe's body suddenly stiffened. Jian Fengqi glanced at Chu Liuyue. Interesting. Of all the people who heard this, it had to be Mu Qinghe. If he hadn't been sure that Chu Liuyue didn't use any disguise technique, he would have suspected that this was deliberately said for Mu Qinghe. That makes sense. Jian Fengqi clapped twice as if he agreed. You may know a person for a long time without understanding his true nature. Many things can't be seen from the surface, and sometimes misunderstandings can arise. Don't you think so, Miss Mu? Mu Hongyu blinked and suddenly realized something. This Jian Fengqi seemed to be talking about her. She coughed and finally felt a trace of awkwardness. That's true. Thank you, Lu Yu and young Master Jian. I will be more careful in the future. Chu Liuyue looked at Jian Fengqi with a natural expression. Young Master Jian, I wonder, how do you plan to treat the princess? No matter what kind of medicine you need, we will definitely get it. Jian Fengqi said leisurely, there are several kinds of poison in her body. It is impossible to remove them all at once. Moreover, her body can't withstand such a heavy dose of medicine. We can only make a decoction and let her take it first, and then let her take the antidote pill. How long will it take? Jian Fengqi raised a finger. 1 day is enough. Mu Hongyu was a little shocked. 1 day is enough? This day refers to the day I need to make the decoction and pill, not to let her recover completely. After that, she will need to take the decoction for a month to completely remove the remaining poison. But that is very simple. You just need to find someone to make the decoction according to my prescription. Chu Liwei thought to herself, as expected. Jian Fengqi had always only taken care of the most important step when treating patients. He was always too lazy to do the rest. He always felt that it was a waste of his talent and energy to do those things. But it was already very good that he was willing to do this step. I heard that Miss Chu is also a celestial physician? And you can already make pills now? Jian Fengqi asked with great interest. Chu Liwei nodded. It's just luck. You are only 14 this year? Although you are not as good as, but you are not bad. No wonder Mu Qinghe was willing to help you. Chu Liwei smiled very modestly. Jian Fengqi felt more and more depressed. This Chu Liwei seemed to be doing everything well, but the emotions in her eyes did not fluctuate. It was as if no matter what he said, it would not affect her. He turned his gaze slightly. Mu Hongyu was staring at the void. Her eyes were wandering, obviously thinking about something. He lost most of his interest and lazily said to Mu Qinghe, Mu Qinghe, I will be refining pills here today. Help me guard. Mu Qinghe said coldly. Impossible. Because there was no need for that. Although Jian Fengqi specialized in celestial physician, his mystic master level was not low. Even if there were any accidents here, he alone would be more than enough to deal with it. Jian Fengqi had already expected this answer, so he did not mind and only shrugged. Then I will go by myself. With that, he walked to another room alone. The moment he opened the door, he waved his sleeve and a faint blue barrier appeared behind him. As for his figure, it was immediately concealed. He stepped into the room. At the same time, a cluster of flames suddenly rose from his hand. The square handkerchief instantly dissipated. Digression: small ailments can really kill. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience from LoveNet. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.